What is your favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie.
Total classic. It's my favorite all-time movie.
Best I've ever seen.
Even my top 10 favorite movies.
My personal favorite.
The best movie ever made.
Best there ever was, best there is now, best there ever will be.
This is the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
Maybe the best thing ever.
It's my 19th favorite made-for-TV movie of all time.
That was the worst countdown ever.
I just kept bouncing. I didn't know.
I was like, wait a minute, you went past 3.
Am I supposed to be counting? Welcome to our 100th episode.
Woohoo!
We know exactly what we're doing.
Holy shit, 100 episodes, bud.
We're professionals now.
We're something.
Yeah.
We're something.
Welcome to Movie Boners, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a delightful episode, unlike last episode.
Right.
If you got scared off, don't be. This is going to be very pleasant and joyful.
This is
only the best of the best.
This is probably like the number one question I get asked every week.
Yeah. And whenever you say, I have a movie podcast, and they're like, oh, what are your favorite movies of all time? Go.
And you're like,
can't
answer that as quick as you think.
It's not that easy, as we have discovered. Trying to put these lists together has been a nightmare.
Yeah. But a fun nightmare. Like a good nightmare.
Yeah.
Like a healthy nightmare.
The kind of nightmare where you're like terrified at first, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm dreaming, and I can just pull out a minigun and mow these mofos down, you know?
Oh my God.
You ever have one of those? Just me? Okay, let's move on. So, what beer are you drinking today?
So, man, I stressed for like, man, I can't even remember how long I've been trying to narrow hundreds, nay, thousands of movies
right
down to 10. And then I finally get my list done, right? I'm like, I'm ready. And then it was, fuck, what's my favorite beer?
Yeah.
So I couldn't figure out what my all-time favorite was currently.
Okay.
So I went with a classic. If you were listening just a few episodes ago, Jake, you already had this one.
Yeah.
I think for the first time.
Probably.
And I'm pretty sure I said, oh, that's one of my all-time favorites. So
it's ringing a bell, yeah.
I'm drinking Dead Guy Ale from Rogue Brewing. And
it's not in a black can.
No, this is some kind of limited edition Paint the Can Dead art contest.
Fancy.
So you get to draw on it. I'm not going to draw on it. I just grabbed the beer can that was available. And...
All right. Cool. Well, I texted you in the middle of the week because I was very excited for where my beer is going.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I didn't think I would be able to find the most perfect beer for this episode, but I did. And it's not like that niche or an uncommon of a beer. I've seen it around for a really long time, and it just clicked that this is the perfect beer for today. So because we are doing this episode about our favorites of all time, I just felt like it applies because I have way more favorite movies than you're really supposed to have, like a normal person. And even though I have 10 on my list today, I love them all equally. So I'm drinking today Polygamy Porter.
Oh my God.
From Wasatch Brewing Company in Utah, of course.
I applaud that one. Yes.
I love them all equally.
This is the only time polygamy is okay, is when it's your love of film and beer.
Yeah. So it's a very good, pretty sweet, but very good porter.
All right.
This is their nitro version too, which is good.
Well, my Dead Guy Ale is, man, I tell you, I fucking love this beer. I really do. Well, real quick before we get into it, I guess we should thank everyone watching and listening.
I was thinking the same thing.
Goddamn episodes.
Yeah.
Folks.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Thank you.
We wouldn't do it if nobody was listening. It's certainly very exciting when people
Yeah.
are saying, "Hey, I really like that." I'm like, "Good, I'm glad," because sometimes it's touch and go. I don't know if anybody cares or if it sucks. Sometimes it does suck, but I'm glad that somebody likes it. They get enjoyment out of it. We help you get through your work day or whatever.
Right.
We really appreciate the feedback and the comments and just the little community we're starting to build here.
I like our community. I was thinking about it actually this whole week of like, man, it's kind of weird. Time has gone by kind of fast.
Yeah.
We started this in August of 2020.
I think
earlier than that.
June or July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was June. Okay, you're
End
right.
of
It was June of 2020, and here we are 2 years later, officially 100 episodes in. And I think it's awesome. I think it's fantastic. We just started it kind of on a, hey, let's do this because we like movies, we like hanging out, and we need something other than all the shit going on in the world.
Yeah.
I still feel that way.
Yeah, weirdly, that's not going away. So, I think this is gonna
kind of different
going.
shit, but a lot of it. But I
Same
like
shit,
being
different
able
day,
to,
as they say.
to do this. So thank you, everyone. Like, sincerely, thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun. I know I'll speak for Jake and as well.
It is fun.
It's a blast. And
now we just
thank you, Jake.
Hang out, shoot the shit, and drink beer.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Thank you, Dustin, my humble co-host. Hey, everybody. Jake here. As a special thank you for 100 episodes and getting this far and you guys caring and listening to us. We didn't think about it till after we recorded it, but we wanted to say thank you. So we're putting a promotion in the merch store, 20% off. You can get to it by going to movieboners.com. It's right here behind me. Just hit that merch button up there, and that will take you directly to the merch store. Once you're there, if you use this code 100EPS, that'll give you 20% off. And we just want to say thank you. Bring stuff basically down to no profit for us. We just want to say thank you and really appreciate you guys listening. And so pick up some swag, let your friends know how cool the podcast is, and let's get back to the real show. All right. So now I'm going to rip you to shreds because we have to check in on our movie draft.
Excuse me. You're going to what?
Because
I checked in on our movie draft this morning.
Because you friggin' suck. That's why. All right.
I'm not going to shit talk because you got Avatar coming up, and I'm like, well.
I don't think it's going to be enough, if I'm being honest. The race is right now for the rating, right, for sure. Yeah. It's very close, but you took the lead this week, as we can see in our handy chart. Look at that little popping up there at the end. But your box office has just been bonkers, blowing up. You're over $1 billion, $1.2 billion ahead of me. I don't think Avatar 2 can even get that in 3 weeks that it's in theaters.
Yeah, it
before the end of the year.
Like the last two big films on my draft were like the two giant comic book just juggernauts that everyone's been waiting for.
Yeah. They've done very well. Everybody likes them a good amount, above average amount. And both almost 400 million or at 400 million. So that certainly helps you quite a bit, I would say. So that's definitely the moral of the story. You took the lead. The question is, can you hang on as time expires in the fourth quarter? Because that's where we are at.
It's kind of crazy. Like, I think it's funny how you have Asteroid City, Kung Fury 2, and Operation Fortune.
They haven't
listed on your list.
They haven't officially been pushed. They still say sometime in 2023 or 2022. I'm sorry.
Oh really? 2023.
I've been planning ahead for next year already, so I have 2023 on the brain.
If it hasn't been confirmed by now,
they could just drop it. Actually, I did see a thing today that said Operation Fortune might get just sent to streaming because they don't know when they can release it to theaters. They don't want to promote it, but it's been done for ages. So it could just get dropped on streaming at some point.
Okay.
Asteroid City certainly is not. And I haven't heard crickets from Kung Fury 2. I don't know what's up with that. But nobody else has either because nobody knows what that movie is except me.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Glass Onion, I think you have a real good shot
Mhm.
with Glass Onion, at least in the rating. And it is going to pull money because they're releasing it for 1 week.
Yeah. A
at
little
release.
bit of cash for
Yeah.
sure. That's like, yeah, that's just kind of, I don't know what's happening there. And then Avatar is like my John Elway. It's like I have 2 minutes left, one final drive before the end of the year. I need to make something happen. Can it happen? Kind of thing. I have low expectations, but we'll see what happens there. So that's where that's at. But you're right. I do think the rating, because it's so close, and I don't think any of yours are going to go up anymore.
No.
They may even drop 1 or 2 tenths of a point over time. If these are above average here, I could slip ahead, which means we need to figure out what to do if there's a tie.
Which means we're going to have a tiebreaker.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do in that case.
It's true. We'll figure something out.
We will indeed. All right. Have you seen anything new lately?
Wakanda forever. Yeah, I went and saw Black Panther.
How was that? Okay. Yeah.
I did like it more than I did the first one, which
Okay.
I was kind of seeing that's like the trend for all of us not big fans of the first one, that we kind of like this one more. There's still definitely a few parts that were cringeworthy. Disney definitely had to make sure they get their woke moments in. There are a couple just blatant out of the blue where you're like, okay. Ironheart was kind of annoying. No offense to the actress, but the character is kind of irritating.
Okay.
Not a fan of her. I could not take Namor too serious. I wanted to.
Yeah.
But then he'd go flying around with his little winged ankles.
Yeah.
And at first you're like, not that bad. But do you remember my biggest pet peeve with Jupiter ascending?
Yeah. The hover skates.
Okay. So that's Namor.
Okay.
And I couldn't take any of it serious.
Yeah.
From the moment he's flying around air skating, I was like, oh,
Interesting.
Shit. I thought what they did with Chadwick Boseman, like how they honored him and kind of paid tribute to him, I thought that was the best part of the film. And I know
No
I
surprise.
texted you pretty much right after I saw it, saying it's the best example of everything wrong with Marvel.
Just this phase or like in general?
In general. Which you and I critiqued pretty heavily in our giant Marvel episodes.
2 episodes, yeah.
Yeah. Because they never have the balls to just let like a dramatic, dark moment be.
Yeah.
They always got to interject real cheap, stupid one-liners, and it just like kills the moment. Wakanda Forever is full of moments where you're like, if it didn't have a single one-liner, it would have been incredible. But they just don't know how to let grown-ups enjoy a film. They have to be like, oh yeah, there's a child in the audience. Throw a one-liner to be like, it's okay.
Yeah. Which is weird because Endgame is their biggest movie ever, and it's the pretty serious.
And it's the most serious, dark one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's still full of one-liners, but it's pretty serious. Nothing again. I love Endgame. So it was okay.
Okay.
It was okay.
That's fair. That's kind of what I expected. Anything else?
No. No.
Okay. I saw a bunch of stuff.
All right.
So I saw my first Roku original film. I saw Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Yes.
Oh, I've wanted to watch that so bad.
It is the best biopic of all time. You will love it. It's great.
It looks amazing.
It's amazing. Everything about it's amazing. It's exactly what you would expect from Weird Al. So if you're a fan of him and his eccentricities, you will like it. I didn't even realize that, but randomly Miramax decided to drop a sequel to one of my favorite comedies of all time, which is a sequel to Fletch. It's called
with John Hamm.
I'd never even heard of this movie. It just showed up. I was like, Fletch? What in the heck? So yeah, John Hamm plays Fletch, and it was great. I've never read the books. People will say that the books are great. I would read them, but it was very fun, like mystery, and I thought that he captured the character that Chevy Chase made so good. Pretty good. So I enjoyed it. It was solid. And then I spent 90 minutes of my week in the most unpredictable way possible. I read a headline that said, IndieWire had an article that said, well, the headline said, it's the movie Falling for Christmas with Lindsay Lohan.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I watched that, by the way.
Amazing.
I forgot about it. I did just watch that.
Okay. The headline said, the movie Falling for Christmas with Lindsay Lohan is the Citizen Kane of Netflix Christmas movies. And I was like, what's this now? So I was like, let's watch Falling for Christmas. Absolutely. And all I have to say is someone at IndieWire is high on crack because it's way better than Citizen Kane. It's amazing.
It's not good.
It's amazing. I don't know. Either it's the worst movie I've ever seen, or it's the most perfect satire I've ever seen. I can't decide.
Dude, when I watched it, so I wasn't really interested in watching it. But I was like, this is Lindsay Lohan's like legitimate we're getting back into
comeback
swing
movie.
Of things.
Because the werewolf one didn't do it.
We don't talk about that one. That was so bad. And so I was like, I'm kind of curious to see how she does now. And then it's like been in the top 10 of Netflix's movies for,
because they're paying IndieWire and other companies to put these headlines together.
But like I think it's been number 4 for like 5 days. It was number 1.
Wow.
But it just got bumped for a couple of the new releases they just did. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did watch that. I
it's
was like,
so weird.
This is like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
But so cringy.
It's like if somebody had never seen a Hallmark movie, but they had it described to them over the phone.
You know what it is?
What is it?
You know how there's like this fad for robotic geeks out there who are
AI?
like, ooh, maybe we'll tell AI a description and the AI will develop it.
Yeah.
Falling for Christmas is if someone described a Hallmark Christmas movie to AI, and
the AI wrote it, they shot it, and then the AI also edited it and did the digital effects and everything. Because there's some wild digital effects in this movie.
The green screen took me way off guard. I was like,
whole
holy
going
shit.
down the mountain part, I was like, I am into this movie now.
I was like,
at
wow,
first I was
we jumped back into like the 1960s.
At first I thought it was just a shitty Hallmark ripoff because it doesn't have the Hallmark like standard, I guess. But then it started doing all of the downhill stuff, and I was like, this is just on another level. And that's when I started thinking maybe they meant to do this. Maybe they didn't accidentally make a terrible movie. It's so hard to tell. But it's worth seeing just because it's so crazy.
I will level with you. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so terrible. I'm with you, Jake. I can't tell if it's intentional or not. It's probably going to be one of those just stupid, horrible films that I find myself watching every Christmas. And I'm going to be like, every time I watch it, I'm going to be like, why am I watching this again?
Yeah. Which because it was so ridiculous, made it hard for me to judge how well Lindsay Lohan was doing. Like I was like, maybe you lost brain cells, or maybe everybody in the movie just seems like that because of how it was written and edited, because it's a very crazy movie.
It's odd. Yeah.
I
was like, did they shoot this in sequence? Because the first 20 minutes, half hour she's pretty like stiff, pretty
Mhm.
clunky, but then she loosens up just like her character does. And I was like,
Mhm.
see that when she gets into some of the physical comedy and the facial expressions that we all grew up watching her do,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's okay, I can see hints of
Yeah.
the Lindsay we all know.
Of greatness. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. But I didn't hate it.
Yeah. As you've heard last week, we have seen much worse.
Oh my god. Yeah, thanks to last week, I feel like I may never actually hate another film.
Yeah. If I can get through it without feeling sick, I'll be like, that was okay. That was actually
Yeah,
really good.
you know what? Not bad.
Oh, which reminds me, I had a realization this last week about last week's episode. We talked a fair amount about actors who play something other than themselves, so a different race or a different gender or a different someone that's disabled and they're not, or something like that. You know what's crazy? You don't have to be a living person in order to play a character nowadays. Like they have dead actors acting, so you can literally be anything. Is kind of where that conversation ended up. I think you don't have to be alive.
I
and
was
you'll be in a
confused as to where you were going with that, and
not that they're, it would be one thing if they were playing a dead person, but they're bringing people back to life to play characters that. So
they're not literally
You don't know that. Could be
bringing
that.
people back from the dead.
Could be that Walt Disney magic that he
There.
always talks about.
They're CGIing them into films horribly, I might add.
It doesn't go well, and it shouldn't be done.
It does not look good, folks. It really doesn't look that good.
No, not at all. Okay, and then if anybody was wondering, Yellowstone is back.
We all know that Yellowstone is back. We all know.
So good. It's so good.
I need to watch it, but now I find myself in I'm in a weird spot, Jake.
Have I overhyped it?
No.
Oh.
The amount of people that I know, you included, who are obsessed with this show are always like, how have you not watched Yellowstone? It's so amazing. And now I find myself in a position, it's what, 5 seasons in?
The 5th one just started, yeah.
Okay. I'm in a position, that weird position, where you don't see something that's so big.
Yeah.
Do I make the choice to just never watch it?
Oh, yeah.
Or do I finally cave and watch it? I was debating that, but then Netflix brought back one of my favorite shows of theirs, and I was like, well, all other shows can go to hell. I'm watching this.
That's a future Dustin Powell. You'll probably do what I did with like Game of Thrones, where you binge it. You don't care until the last season's about to start, and then you binge it all, and then you watch the last season.
That may be it.
Basically what happens.
That may be it. But anyways.
All right. So let's finally get into this. Was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, honestly.
Dude, this was rough. I do have to put a little caveat at the start of mine. And Jake, my gut tells me you're going to be on the same page.
Okay. I'll let you know.
So this is my top 10 as of now.
As of 11 November 18th, 2022.
Like if you asked me even 5 years ago what my top 10 would be, it would have been a different list. And I'm sure if you ask me a year or two from now, it will be a different list. I've realized something because I immediately flocked to movies that I just loved as a kid. And they were my favorites back then. Watched them again, was like, I still fucking love this.
Yeah.
But then I started finding like, but other movies have kind of like made impacts on me. And I got a little deep with mine and was like, okay. I think mine has to be, I think my list, much like all of our top 10s, are kind of always up for a little bit of change.
For sure. It's fluid, I would say.
Yeah,
that's exactly where I went with mine, actually, kind of verbatim, because I have movies on my list that I hadn't seen until we started this episode, and I had relatively recently seen it, and I'm like, God, I love that movie. And so it made it on the top 10 all time list, which is kind of crazy. I was also surprised that I didn't have more old movies. Like I really love old movies, even 80s, 90s movies. Almost all of my movies are from the last 20 years.
Really?
Which is kind of blew my mind. I was not prepared for that. I had to do some soul searching, kind of like you described, where I was like, all of the ones I've assumed are my favorite, are they still my favorite?
Yeah.
And I had to kind of let some go and drift down. And these are now my current 2022 favorites now.
I'd say mine is a pretty good. I've got 80s, 90s, and 2000s on mine.
Okay.
But there were some I was expecting just like all 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I've only got like 2 from the 2000s. We're good. Like, because at first I was telling myself it'll be weird if you include recent-ish films on your top 10. Because, like, is it really your top 10, or are you just still on the hype train of it? So you're putting it there. But yeah, no, like mine was constantly shifting. So I approached mine with, when I watch these, not just in prep for this, but every time I've watched it, do I kind of feel something from it? Do I feel like, and this will sound weird unless you've been listening to us for a while, my big thing was like, how does the movie speak to me now?
Yeah.
Like, how does it actually make me feel? Does it challenge me? Does it kind of put stuff up in view for me? And that was what this list ended up just kind of culminating, where it was like, oh yeah, this one's special. This one holds a spot. And also, sadly, if you've been listening, you kind of already know a couple of mine, which I was like, God damn it.
Yeah, I have a couple of those for sure, where I'm like, this is my favorite movie. And yeah, it still is. I mean, it's still on my list. It's not at the number 1 spot, but it's on the list.
Man, did I have fun with this. Stressful fun, because I'm telling you, dude, that was so many movies to go through.
It sounds silly, but it was stressful. I took it very seriously. And I think probably because I'm broadcasting it to the world that these are my favorite movies of all time, it had to be defensible. It had to be like my legit favorites. And so, like I said, soul searching had to happen to actually figure out what that means now. And because so much has changed, I guess, over the last several years.
But oh man, it's so good.
Okay, so do you want to do it?
Let's do this. Our all-time top 10. People can stop asking us. Just go listen to Joe.
We'll need to figure out when this changes, though, and then do another one, because it won't be this forever,
right? Like, shit.
Yeah, like you were saying, about like really recent movies. I struggled if I was going to put Dune on there or not, because obviously it is so recent. I was close. I was like, I couldn't even tell if it was just hype train and I'm excited for the second part. But I just remember I kept saying to myself, I kept saying to everybody, this is the most incredible movie I've ever seen. Like, I was just in love with the whole experience of watching it. And so I have only seen it 2 or 3 times, but we'll see how that ends up. It's not on my list. So it was too new. I wanted to give it some space. I
came very close, Jake, to texting you last week and being like, you're putting Dune on your list, aren't you? Because like I own it. I have the physical copy. And so as I'm going through my whole giant, just insane collection of films, I see Dune and I'm like, Jake's going to put that on his list. Like that movie, that was the most excited I have heard Jake about a recent film. And he gets excited, but that one hit a chord. Yeah, I almost text you to be like, Dune's on your list, isn't it?
Yeah, it was next level. I think the most recent one I have is from 2018. So a solid 4 years.
I do have one from 2020. Ooh.
Okay.
It's the most recent one. Everything else is pre-2020.
Nice.
But yeah.
All right.
Well, Jake, I am stoked to hear your list.
Okay.
I think I started the last one off, so why don't you start this one off?
Okay. I have no idea, but we'll see.
Me neither.
We'll get into it. So, my number 10 favorite movie of all time is the one that I hinted at I had not seen until we started this show. And so I watched it in a recent episode, not recent, in the last 2 years, obviously. And it kind of blew my mind. I moved it way up in my list at the time of just how interested I was in it. And it perfectly captures, I think, everything I love in film, filmmaking, film writing. And it was a movie made for $7,000. So my number 10 movie is a movie called Primer from 2004. It is one of the most incredibly thought out and written movies, super low budget. The Shane Carruth, the guy who made it, he basically had to do everything. He did the, if you watch the credits, it's all his name. He did the writing, the producing, the directing, the editing. He scored the movie. And he had never done any of those things before. He was not like a musician or an editor or anything. He learned it all. He did it all. And it came out great. And he acts in it. He's like the lead actor in the whole thing because he couldn't find an actor for this role. And it's just, if you like sci-fi movies and you like time travel movies, you have to check it out because it will blow your mind. You will love it. You'll have to see it several times. And every time you see it, you'll get more out of it because it's very clever. I think that Shane Carruth is friends with Ryan Johnson. Yes.
Okay.
The sucky Star Wars director.
Yeah, also but Ryan Johnson did Looper, so
correct. And so he's friends with Ryan Johnson, who did Looper, and Shane Carruth, after screening Looper, told his friend Ryan Johnson, he's like, "That's not how time travel works." This guy has thought way too much about time travel. He is, I think, executed it in a very clever way. I love how low budget it is because it is very scrappy in the sense that they need to use all these like homemade stuff just to make a movie. They, like I said, they made it for $7,000. The movie is an hour and 17 minutes long. They only shot an hour and 20 minutes of usable footage. And so they didn't have like all this extra stuff to work around sound issues and all this stuff. It's just kind of like a little underground guerrilla movie. And it also is brilliant at the same time. Yeah. So it is one of the things I just love about movies and movie writing and all that stuff. It's perfect. And I wouldn't change anything about it. I love it.
Yeah. You watched that for our first or second random 10.
I think it was our first movies we've been meaning to watch.
Oh, meaning to watch?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Because there's movies that we haven't gotten around to, and then when we did the follow-up of movies we finally got around to, I put it at the very top because I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, I remember you talking about Primer way back in the day, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked that one's on your list because I do remember how into it you were.
I'm still into it.
Yeah.
As you can tell.
I know you had told me to watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. Good your loins when you do. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. Are we allowed to do that?
It's great. Yeah. No, we can't do that.
We got away with it because we didn't finish the word.
Yeah.
Well, I like your pick. Even though I haven't seen the movie, I just remember when you did talk about it that first time. And I remember after we were done recording the episode, you continued to talk about it. So
it will stick with you because it's like one of those movies that you can't stop thinking about and you need to see again.
Yeah.
It's great.
I love movies like that. I really do love movies like that. I have a couple of them.
Okay, let's hear it. What's your number 10?
Well, my first, my number 10, not my first, my number 10 is kind of an oddball because it's one that I actually, as hard as I try to think about it, I have zero memory of the first time I watched this movie, which is weird for me because typically I will remember the first time because typically they'll put me in just such a state of awe.
Yeah.
This one, I have no memory of ever sitting down for the first time to watch it.
Okay.
It's a movie that just like has, I guess, been a part of me. If that's not weird enough to say, but it's one that I've always felt very connected to. It's just one that I've always known. I've loved it. I know I have my dad to thank for it. But my number 10 is The Blues Brothers.
Okay, yeah.
From 1980. There's this, I love the music. I love the story. It's funny. It's adventure. It's just, it's so oddball. But what makes it stay or be on this list is when I watch it, I'm not kidding. I always feel like it's a part of, like, there's just some cool connection with that story, with my dad, and just as hippie as I can sound, it's all good things.
Yeah.
But I can't deny, I adore that film. I love the music. I love seeing and hearing all the cameos. You know, you got Aretha Franklin. You got you have everyone. It's such a wonderful film, and every time it ends, I'm in such a great mood. And any movie that will put a super positive spin on my mood, is going to be you're going to be a part of me forever. So Blues Brothers.
I love Blues Brothers. Like that, I think I saw it as a kid too. And just specifically the mall scene where they're driving through and breaking everything and just commenting on the stores and stuff. Their wit and just deadpanness of we're on a mission from God. It's just the best. I love it.
It's just so good. And it's what just blows me away is I legit have no clue what it was like the first time I saw it. It's a movie where, I just know this movie. That's weird. In an awesome way.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. My number 9 kind of ties into that because it is also, for me at least, a very feel-good movie. When I watch it, I always feel great. It always pulls me out of a funk. I just feel it's so nice to watch. And it's also, I guess, kind of cathartic because there is a lot of going through stuff that happens in the beginning part of it. And so that's kind of fun. It's a really funny movie. So it's, I think, one of the only comedies on my list. And it wasn't in my top 10 comedy list because I made that list kind of weird in a weird way. This, I don't know if I would say it's one of my favorite comedies, but it's so much more than just a comedy, I think, because that's why it's on my list. So my number 9 is Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, hell yeah.
The first time I saw this movie, I think I rented it from Netflix when they mailed you DVDs.
Oh, yeah. The good old days.
Yeah. And as soon as I watched it, I was like, I need to watch it again because it is just that good. And I just watched it immediately again a second time. It just makes you feel so much better. And I think partly is because of the movie itself has a feeling to it, the lighting and the colors and the music and for some reason all of the people, the actors they just look their best ever. Shout out to the hair and makeup and costumes and lighting people because everybody looks great, everything sounds great, and it's the funniest movie, just the most quotable movie, which I always appreciate when I can take a movie and bring it into real life by quoting all of these things.
Fuck me, right?
Yeah. When life gives you lemons, you just say, fuck the lemons and bail.
Bail.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful movie. And I feel like the things that I love the most about it are that Peter Brenner, played by Jason Segel, goes through a breakup, obviously, with Sarah Marshall. And he is very, I guess, dramatic about the breakup. He cries a lot and all this stuff. But it's great even if you're not going through a breakup, you're just going through a hard time, because the message of the story is that anytime something bad like that happens, that it's probably because something better is on its way.
Yeah.
So like, you need to go through those things in order to kind of learn that, hey, maybe it wasn't the best thing for you. You can do something better. For him, he felt like he loved that relationship and he loved that person, but he also over time started to realize that, hey, I am not pursuing my dream of a Dracula musical with puppets, which you see and is amazing in the movie. And he should support and he should pursue that. And part of the reason he didn't pursue it is because his girlfriend really didn't support him in doing it.
Right.
And even though he felt like it was a great relationship, she kind of wasn't the most supportive, and he could find better, honestly. So the movie is a journey of him making peace with that. And I think that is so encouraging, and it's done in such a fun, funny way, but there's so much heart in it at the same time.
Yeah. That one is on my top 10 comedy list. Jake, you know, I've talked about that movie extensively just over the years. I was the same way. I saw it in the theater with a buddy of mine. Actually, I think it was one of our longest fans and listeners, John.
Little John.
Him and I went and saw it, and then it was like that same weekend. I was married at the time. I dragged my wife to it and was like, you have to see this movie. It's just, you have to see it. I'm obsessed with that movie. I love that movie. And I use that movie to help me get through some of the tougher moments in my life. Everything you said is perfect, Jake. It is such a cathartic film. It's so fun. It's so uplifting in a unique way. Like, it's not a preachy, uplifting film. It's just, you feel good.
Yeah.
I think everyone feels a little bit like Peter does throughout that journey. I would always go see that Dracula musical, though.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you and I, out of everyone we know, would probably be the only two going and cheering and being like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Because we did that with the Muppets, also starring Jason Segel.
Yeah. He likes Muppets.
Yeah, that movie is, I love that movie.
Yeah. And everybody in it, there's so many funny people in it in just small roles, with Paul Rudd and Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader. And as the stepbrother, he's my favorite part. Everybody's hilarious in it. It's great.
Hey, that's a nice pearl necklace you got there. Were you just wearing that? Oh, it's because he says it's like sperm. That's gross.
It's a very mature film for mature people to see.
Peter, what are you doing here? I came here to murder you. It's my favorite line in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Don't worry, folks. It's not a quote-a-thon.
Let's move on. Let's move
on. That's so awesome, Jake. I'm so happy that's on your list. My number 9 is not funny. It is definitely it's also a film about growth, but it's done in a little bit more serious tone. This movie really hit hard when I saw it. This is the most recent one. It came out in 2020. In fact, I actually just talked about it a handful of episodes ago on movies we think everyone needs to go and watch. This movie, when I saw it, it was one of those where I figured I would enjoy it, but then it just kept hitting super deep, and it felt very personal, and it's so honest, and it's so open about so many things. And a lot of people mistake it for being one kind of movie, and it's not. All of that stuff is just a metaphor for what the story actually is, or at least it's my perception of it. But this movie has had such a profound impact on my life that I've even adapted or kind of stolen the principle of the film, molded it to, tweaked it just a little bit for my own mind frame.
Yeah.
And now it's my like everyday mantra or principle, if you will, of one first down at a time. Let the little things add up. When you work them, let them add up. Good things, like you start having success with it.
Yeah.
So my number 9 is The Way Back with Ben Affleck from 2020. A lot of people think it's just a basketball film. It's not. I mean, basketball is a big key to it, but it's not a basketball film. It is the story of a man who is so broken and at the absolute lowest point where he is given a chance to work his way back, try and clean his life up. He's an alcoholic. He's depressed beyond anything. He relies on drinking heavily just to get him through the night, through the day. And he starts letting positive things. He kind of embraces little positive changes. The movie is profound. To me, it's so good. And so many people have not watched it because they're like, oh, it's a basketball movie. We know how we've seen Remember the Titans, and it's like, no, folks. The journey his character goes on, whether you are struggling with addiction or really anything, the journey he goes on feels so real and personal. And it does help that as he was cleaning up his own life with addiction, he made this movie as a tool for getting clean.
Yeah.
So you feel all that. His performance is powerful. I honestly think it's my favorite Ben Affleck performance ever. And I'm a big fan of the dude.
Okay.
Rewatching it again. It's one that I don't watch all the time.
Right.
Because I'm like, I don't feel like getting all pummeled in the feels every night.
Yeah.
Right. But it is one, if we ever had the chance to meet the dude, interview the dude, whatever, obviously we'd want to talk about Batman, his career in general. But most importantly to me, I would just love the opportunity to just thank him for this film and to let him know, dude, your movie, your performance kind of helped change this dude's life. So thank you, Ben Affleck, for an amazing film. It's number 9. It honestly, it could probably keep working its way up because the moment I saw it and the moment those end credits rolled, I was like, oh shit. Yeah. It's that kind of movie for me. Okay.
Yeah. And being from 2020, you're going to have more time with that movie for sure.
Yeah. So, and I think if memory serves right, I think that was the last movie I saw in theaters before everything shut down.
Yeah.
So it also kind of had that little that was the last thing that I saw on the big screen.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. It got to kind of reverberate for a while on you.
Yeah, I love that movie so much.
Yeah. You've been raving about it for ages. I have not gotten around to seeing it. I will make sure it's higher on the list though, because I certainly need to. Okay. My number 8 is also not really a funny movie. It's not a serious tearjerker movie either, though. It's an awesome violent movie that's super slow for part of it and super violent for part of it. So that's why I love it. And it's kind of romantic too, in a weird way. My number 8 is Drive.
Okay. I was like, all right, he has described so many movies this exact way.
It's like Guess Who, where you're trying to get the little tiles down. Drive is just one of those movies that every time I watch it, I'm like, God damn, this movie is good. And I think some people don't like it because it is pretty slow, especially for the first half. The first 50 minutes are slow, or there's long silences and the main character is a little awkward and quiet, and there's an awkward kind of romance because her husband just died, and some people are going to be grossed out by the sudden and extreme violence, and I get that, but those are all the reasons I love it, and I think that it's perfect, and the whole thing is just the most perfect aesthetics. Yeah. That's the style is one of the main things I'm gravitated to, because all his jacket, obviously, the toothpick, the hammer in the strip club, his gloves, the cars are kind of mediocre, unassuming cars, but then they're beef up the engines, and so that's kind of different and interesting and cool. And 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 my favorite scene is the scene where they're in the elevator together. Ryan Gosling's character and Carey Mulligan's character, they're in the elevator together. And there's a guy, and he does this like, he like kind of scoots her behind him in like a very nice chivalrous way. He's kind of like putting her in the safer corner of the elevator. And then he turns around. They have a very slow motion, romantic first kiss. And then he has a fight with this guy that ends in him stomping on his face until his skull caves in. And the look on her face is the best because she's like, I don't know why I just made out with you. But I kind of dug it, I think, is what's on her face. So I don't know, everything about the movie, and it's music, it's pacing. Nicholas Winding Refn, the like director and writer of it, I like a lot of his stuff, but I think this is just peak, top tier, top drawer, as the Brits would say. And the for a movie called Drive, there is driving in it. He's a driver, but from the moment I saw the opening scene where he picks up those robbers and he drives them away, the fact that he doesn't race through the streets constantly, that he drives at a normal pace as much as possible, stays under the radar, pulls over and stops. Like, this is not what you would expect from I'm a getaway driver for all these criminals. It's like, I'm just going to go the speed limit. I'm going to pull over and stop. I'm going to follow all of the laws and all this stuff. It is not that exciting on paper, but when you see it, it's so tense and purposeful and exciting. And it's great. And then, of course, when the cops do turn on the lights, it just kicks off and it's great. So I frickin' love this movie. And every time I see it, I'm like, God, that movie's so good.
Yeah, you've talked about Drive for ages. I also love Drive. My favorite thing in that movie is the color scheme, especially like the night driving scenes. There's something about the aesthetic of it that I'm like, I feel like I could just watch this moment on a loop. Like, just give me these 45 seconds or whatever on a loop for a little bit, and it's awesome. Yeah. The movie is fantastic, and Gosling is incredible in it for kind of being an unassuming, reserved for the most part, kind of guy.
Drive until it's not. Yeah, you can absolutely just have it on a loop. If you just put the soundtrack on and go drive, it's a vibe. Like, that is all you need. Is just listening to that soundtrack while you're driving.
My number 8 came out in 2010.
Okay.
This one is kind of an interesting one to me because the first time I watched it, I was like, this is just an awesome adventure that's trippy as hell. Like, this is just cool. What a cool movie. But the older I get and the more I've watched it over the years, the more I'm like, okay, there's a lot of meat to this film, and it's all starting to just hit me in ways I'm not sure if this is normal, because the movie itself is like kind of observed as just a interesting action movie that some people overcomplicate when they think about it or talk about it, but it's really not horribly complicated.
Okay.
But it definitely hits a lot deeper in the last like 5 years or so whenever I watch it. And now I'm just like, I'm obsessed with this movie. And it comes as no surprise. It comes from my favorite director. No, it's not Batman, guys. Inception has grown to be a movie that I am just obsessed with. I love the story of Cobb and what he's got to do. And everyone always just assumes, oh, it's just this weird movie going dream layers down, you know, to put an idea in a guy's head. That movie has so much more like depth to it and meaning to it. And it's just kind of subtly put throughout the whole film. You know what? No, it's not even subtle, but people don't realize that the whole point of the movie is literally just this guy has gone through such incredible lengths to not only protect his children, he has sacrificed everything in his own life for the betterment of his kids. And now he's just trying to figure out what he can do to get back home. He doesn't ever even say, like, I just want to hold my kids again. I don't want to, like, he never says, like, I want to play with them. It comes down to such a simple, like, thing of, I just want to see their faces.
Yeah.
And to me, that is as a parent, that is such a incredible drive of, I just want to see my kid.
Yeah.
So Inception just blows me away so much anymore. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, first time I saw it, I thought it was just a cool action movie. It is.
Yeah.
The stunt work in that movie, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
But it is so intense. It is so exciting. Honestly, I think it's one of the most exciting films, whether it came from Nolan or not. The excitement factor, the intensity factor is so massive, especially as everything starts like winding down or winding up, if you will.
Yeah.
But the music is like, again, Hans Zimmer. I can throw on just the soundtrack and I'm a happy guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah, Inception just, it blows me away. And Nolan does this with pretty much all of his films where he puts up a lot of just kind of the spectacle, which has all the meat in it, but so many people get so caught up in it. And it's almost like he's just waiting. He's just like, I don't make films for the instant gratification. I want you to just watch it again and again.
Right.
And then one day you're going to watch it and you're going to be like, oh shit.
Yeah. He like puts the sweet layer on top to just attract all of the people to find it interesting and fun. Cause it is certainly that. You could just enjoy it for that forever. But if you give it a chance, there's so much more under the surface.
Yeah.
I love Inception because I think he does an incredible job of taking really big ideas of these dreams and putting people into dreams, and they can interact with other people who are in the dream, and you can go dreams within dreams within dreams. That's a very complicated thing, but he tells you the story in a way that you just get, like it makes sense. He doesn't have to over explain it. He's like, here's what it is. It's kind of like this, if you've ever experienced this, and everybody has experienced like the kick or
the kill. Yeah.
All of the different things, or like when things seem to move slower, like time seems to move slower when you're sleeping or whatever. Everybody's experienced all those little things that make you go, oh yeah, that's real. I totally know what's going on now. I don't think he has that with like Tenet, which is even bigger ideas, that is more complicated, that I think it will take people longer to get all of those things. But every movie he does has that. Interstellar has that. All of his movies have that, and it's incredible. Some of the best writing. Yeah,
I juggled Interstellar and Inception because both movies just hit so heavy for me.
Yeah.
Inception kind of took the cake though, just because that was the one that like I just keep going back to.
Yeah.
Like that's one where if I'm trying to figure out what am I going to watch, and my brain's like, oh, Inception's fun. That's exciting. Like the stunt work, the hallway scene. You got to watch the hallway scene. And then by the end, I'm like, but yeah, Interstellar, I have nothing against Interstellar. It's I think I even put it on one of my favorite sci-fi films.
Yeah.
As in my top 10. But Inception just has really become a movie that's like grounding to me of just, again, you got to put in some work, whether you like the work or not. Sometimes you resent it, but it's important because your end game, the end goal, is far more important than what you're doing right now.
Right.
You're going to do it.
Yeah. And it should all serve that purpose, that ultimate purpose.
And I love how he like, you have the whole thing with his wife, Mal, who keeps popping up because we all have our own version of Mal, if you will, that just seems to keep showing up in the most inopportune moments. And you're like, I thought I was fucking moving away from this.
And trying to keep you from achieving that purpose.
Yeah. So we could do a whole big thing, but Inception it's another one that it talks, it speaks.
Oh, it does. It does. It's a perfect movie. I totally agree. All right, my number 7 might come as a surprise. Actually, I think a few of mine on my list are going to be a surprise to you. I know that you know that I like them, but I don't know if you know I like them this much. Like, this is a big deal to be on a top 10 all time. So, my number 7, I've always been a fan of the found footage style, the point of view style of movies. I did get kind of overdone there for a bit, but I was one of the people that always liked it. Like, some people criticized it or got sick by it. I always thought it was interesting. I think that Blair Witch kind of popularized it, and I think that Paranormal Activity probably did it the best as far as the writing to make the reason for the found footage actually makes sense. Some of them are pretty just, there's not a big reason, they just want to do it. This one I think is really good. My movie is in the found footage style, but not as I don't know, not as forced, I guess. It's really good. I really, really love this movie. So my number 7 is called As Above, So Below. It's from 2014.
You have talked about this movie a lot.
Yeah. And it's because on like the surface, this is probably my favorite full movie in the found footage style, because it's like as a complete package, the story, the suspense, the action, the storytelling, all that stuff. It's about a documentary crew that follows this archaeologist around, and then they descend into the catacombs of Paris to help her find an artifact. That's like the top surface of the story. And so that's fun. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones style adventure where they're trying to find this artifact. And it's the first movie that you're actually able to film in the Paris catacombs. So you get all of the added ambiance and history and millions of dead bones and all this stuff. Which is better than live bones. If you've ever had a live bone, that's not good. But I love this movie specifically because all of the story part is really interesting and fun and suspenseful. They descend into these catacombs and it's pretty scary, and it's it's a horror movie for sure. It's suspenseful. There's scares. There's eerie, just creepy moments where they just find different people down there or lose different people down there or get claustrophobic. So if it was just that, I would really enjoy this movie. The reason that it's pushed up over the top and onto my top 10 is because the story itself follows one of my favorite stories of all time, which is Dante's Inferno. And so it's formed in this way where as they go into the catacombs, it's like Dante's descent into hell. And then each level that they go to is like one of the different levels of Dante's Inferno. And because it's the found footage style, you're not really introduced to these characters with like any big backstory. It's just kind of, you start with them and you kind of pick up little tidbits along the way. They pick up some guides to help them in the catacombs, and you don't really know a lot about them. But through the course of the movie, as they're in the catacombs and stuff, you get to experience what their different, like what things about their past and their life are like haunting them. And there's very like some character will hear like an old style telephone start ringing in the bottoms of these catacombs. And so there's just different creepy things that start happening that directly tie into that person's life. And they're being haunted by this thing essentially, and tormented in this version of their hell, basically. So it's visually incredible. It's creepy and spooky, but very deep if you want to get into it, which I always enjoy. So it's worth it, and it's so good. I love As Above, So Below.
Yeah, it's another one I haven't watched. It keeps popping up on my, I don't know if it's Netflix. It's one of the streaming sites that has it right now. It's always popping up.
Yeah.
Movies for you. And I'm like, I need to watch that. And then I don't. Not for any like bad reason. I'm just like, I'm just not in the mood to watch found footage like horror film at the moment.
Right.
But you have been talking about that movie I think since it came out, or since like whenever you saw it the first, because I
Yeah.
remember you telling me about it a
Mhm.
handful of times, and then when we started the show, you
Mhm.
talked about it again a few more times, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah, I
not
think it
shocked
was
actually
on
that
our
it's there.
hidden gems or something. I
I
keep
think it was
trying.
on like your horror list or the Halloween
Yeah.
list of just good spooky movies to watch. It
Yeah.
was on one of those,
I keep sneaking ways in to talk
and I
about it.
think you did put it on another episode. It may have been the Hidden Gems one. You've talked about it a few times.
I need people to see it. It's great.
Right? Folks, honestly, all the movies we talk about, go fucking watch them.
Except for last week's. Let's
Except for
pretend that doesn't exist.
Don't watch last week's.
Don't
Watch
watch
our
any of those.
episode about last week because
Yeah.
our conversation was pretty killer.
Yeah, I liked it.
And I think we brought up some pretty awesome points and observations. But the movies we watched, don't do
Don't
that.
watch them. No, it's not worth it.
But all the other movies, though,
Yeah.
go watch those.
Yeah, we're going to talk about great movies.
Yeah.
Speaking of, what's your number 7?
Oh man, my number 7 might arguably be one of the most quoted films ever.
Okay.
It is one of the funniest films I've ever seen to this
Mhm.
day. It just holds up. Fuck.
Mhm.
The other day, my daughter and I, just for shits and giggles, quoted this movie. We were out and about and just pretty much did the whole movie while driving around town because it's
Mhm.
that kind of comedy where everyone who like watched it in the 90s when it came out, who
Mhm.
watched it as teenagers, we're all obsessed with it. We all still quote it, even in our mid 30s. We're probably going to quote this on our deathbeds because
It's a part of
just
us now.
that good.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I did not have this on my top 10 comedy
Mhm.
for a couple reasons. One, it just like I felt it deserved more than that list, and
Interesting.
also like yours with Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where you're
Mhm.
like it has its own like podium. It needs to be set aside.
Yeah.
So my number 7 is Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
This movie is it is comedy royalty. Like
Yeah.
it's so fucking good.
I don't know what it is about it, but it doesn't get better than that.
It's like
It's lightning in a bottle.
so many movies, and I love stupid comedies, love them. But Dumb and Dumber is just
Mhm.
like it is the reigning champion,
Yeah.
and all of our movies now are just its legacy, right?
Right.
Like it tapped into something so dumb
Yeah.
and so brilliant
Mhm.
that we're just obsessed with it now. Like,
Yeah. 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 And it is the most quotable movie that you will be quoting it in probably inappropriate situations if you're me. It comes to mind. It's the first thing that comes to mind because it's part of us, I think.
Every time living in Texas, I see a lot of people wearing boots. And every time I can't help it. It's
Mhm.
just like it's an impulse. It's like a happy OCD of just killer boots, man. No one seems to get it. I'm like, y'all
Yeah.
suck, but
Yeah.
I just this movie, and especially when I saw it when I was like a little kid,
Yeah.
you the same boat.
Yeah.
The humor in it is so immature and
Yeah.
so childish. I think we just latched onto it because it was everything like it's okay to laugh at butts and fart
Right.
jokes. It's okay to laugh at males in general because we're kind of dumb.
We're that dumb. Yeah. Yeah. I think as kids, I don't know if your parents were like this, but mine also didn't really like those dumb things
Oh yeah.
or obnoxious things. They were like, no, you shouldn't watch that. Like,
Oh,
'cause
my
we
mom
don't-
hated them. My dad was like, "You should watch Airplane. You should watch Hot Shots."
Yeah. Yeah. I watched all of those. And so when I finally did see Dumb and Dumber, I was like, this is incredible. This is
It's
like
so good.
this. I'm gonna love this forever now.
And I really do. I really do. when we sat down, well, when I sat down to start, like, okay, let's just start with our basic, we'll make our list of movies we expect to show up.
Yeah.
This one wasn't even on the I expect it. It was immediately like, well, Dumb and Dumber goes on the list. Like, that's not even a like.
Yeah. Yeah. I start to like second guess myself every once in a while because I have seen it so much that I don't watch it a lot these days. And so I start to second guess myself, like, is it as good as I remember? Is it as funny as I remember? And I'll put it on and immediately I'm like, yes, immediately. Yes. This is amazing. I love every moment of it. I'm quoting every moment of it. It's still funny.
I still laugh. My favorite moment is the opening. Like, it's one of the first scenes in the film. Takes nothing away from the rest of the movie, but to set up a movie where a guy falls off a fucking jetway. Yeah. And then flat out says, fell off the jetway again.
Yeah.
Like, my daughter, Monica's always laughing at me because when we watch it, she looks right at me when he flashes the badge. It's okay. I'm a limo driver. And runs. She will look right at me and just wait for it. She knows when he falls out and just like, I've lost my shit. It's my favorite scene.
As only Jim Carrey can do.
As only Jim Carrey can do. Yeah, I love Dumb and Dumber. It puts the biggest smile on my face. I'm always in pain after watching it because I've been laughing. And I've seen it a million times. I know the movie. Right. But it's never not funny. So
yeah. And all of the sincere moments, I think, make it what it is.
Oh, yeah.
If it was just making fun of these dumb guys, it would just be entertaining. But there's so much sincerity between the two of them, and there's so many unexpected moments where you're like, you think they're about to get it or figure it out, and then they don't. They go the opposite direction. It's so perfect.
John Denver's full of shit, man.
I thought the Rocky Mountains would be a little rockier than this. Okay, moving on before we quote all of Dumb and Dumber. So my number 6 is one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done. We did pretty early on. I'm surprised that we did it this early. Sometimes I go back and look like, oh, we did our crime episode that early, or our
that was an early episode, yeah.
And so our first break in our style, or our, I guess, Inception standard of top 10s, the first thing that we stopped doing top 10s with was our Quentin Tarantino episode. And I freaking love it. And I love that episode, and I love his movies. And I loved specifically watching all of them back to back and picking up all the little things and similarities between them. That kind of changed a lot for me.
The Tarantino verse that we all notice.
Yeah. And so my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie made it onto my list. It is relatively recent. It is Inglourious Bastards.
I am not shocked at all that movie is on your list.
I probably said it in that episode that this is my favorite. It will always be my favorite. There's something about it that it's my absolute favorite of his for a lot of reasons. It perfectly captures his ability to write and film gripping dialogue. Like, dialogue in movies is so often just used to move the story across. But when Tarantino does it, he will put you in a conversation at a table, and it will be the most interesting thing you've ever seen. And you will just be gripped by it and scared for it and suspenseful for it. And this movie does it, I think, the best. I think it's kind of the peak of those things, because you have the dairy farm interview at the very beginning. That's just so suspenseful.
It's still like one of the most terrifying scenes I think ever put on screen.
And then he basically does it again with the basement bar scene.
Yep.
And the restaurant cream.
Oh, the restaurant with the creme.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so many things where it's just suspenseful, but at the same time, it's such a fun movie. And I feel like even though it's World War II and it's Hitler and it's Nazis and all this stuff, the stakes aren't terribly high. And so it's very fun. All of the characters are fun or funny and interesting. And the style, I love the style of this kind of version of Nazi Germany. I love everything about it. And then I don't know why more movies don't do this, but to actually take a historic premise and then change the outcome of it. More movies should do that. I love those kind of what if stories of what if this happened or what if that happened. It doesn't have to always follow the same thing, and it's even more satisfying and exciting, and that's part of why I love this movie as well, because I had never seen a movie where they actually succeeded in this way. So it's I don't know, it's so good, and every time I watch it, I love it even more. I love the style and the Samuel L. Jackson voiceover and the bastards and the different stories you follow, the different characters, the little groups that you follow, the little cameos by Mike Myers, not Michael Myers. He's not in this movie. I don't know. It's so good, and I will watch it forever, and I will love it. I love every minute of it.
Yeah, I know my personal favorite of Tarantino's is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I love that kind of love letter. Again, he takes history and alters it in like a satisfying way. The kind of what if that we can be like, oh, that would have been great.
Yeah, I feel much better by that watching this.
Right. But Inglourious Bastards, I can never take anything like any credit away from that film. I do agree with everything you say about it, where I actually, although Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is my personal favorite, I actually have to think that Inglourious Bastards might be his best movie, like best made.
Yeah.
Best
most
written
complete.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can't remember how I listed them in our Tarantino episode, but again, like I find myself rewatching some of the movies from our past top 10, and I have noticed a couple times of like, is this still on my list? Or like, oh, why didn't I put that on? I even changed a couple of my lists on our show. You know, I had Truman Show not on my drama list, rewatched it for our Jim Carrey episode, and was like, what the fuck was I thinking? This is totally up there.
Right. Yeah, I would do my comedy list way differently.
Yeah. But Inglourious Bastards, that opening dairy farm scene is one of the most intense scenes I've ever seen. And to me, the restaurant scene with him and Shoshana is just as intense, if not a little bit more, because you as the viewer are trying to figure out, like, does he know? I think he knows.
Right.
But does he know?
It's more intense because it was built on the back of that first scene that introduced you to him, and you know,
terrifying. But the performance from that. Yeah, and the performances are so incredible.
Yeah.
From the ultra serious and terrifying to the super ridiculous and kind of bumbling leader. Brad Pitt in bumbly like roles is when he's his best.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I love Inglourious Basterds. It's so good. It's so good. And it's so satisfying. It's one of the few times this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think, get away with when they do a close-up of extreme kind of overkill violence on a certain person or group of people, where the audience unanimously is like, yes, we're okay with this bit of violence.
You wanted it. It's payoff for what you were hoping would happen.
And for that brief moment where, like, man, that would have been great. Of course, reality sets in and you're like, man, fuck this world. But maybe not that stake. But yeah, no, Inglourious Bastards. Not shocked it's on your list, Jake. Not shocked at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Oh, it's so good. All right. Well, my number 6 is, I believe, the first crossover previous
Okay.
This is also one that I would have changed. And it's funny that you and I have now both talked about. I think I would approach my comedy list differently. I would,
Mhm.
and I would probably
Mm.
change a few on mine. This one,
Okay.
I don't think I would have on that list because I'm going to put it on my all-time top 10.
Yeah.
After rewatching it for the past couple of years, after we made that episode, this one has it continues to do this, where
Mhm.
it becomes more important to me. I feel so much better every time I watch it. It just like, okay,
Mhm.
you belong up here.
Mhm.
I know that I'm obsessed with this movie. It's not a laugh out loud comedy. It was my number one comedy, which I would change to put it on
Mhm.
here. But this might be one of my favorite. It just, I always feel kind of like an extra push to, okay, let's get going.
Yeah.
It's 500 Days of Summer.
Okay.
I this movie's so brilliant. It's too brilliant. It's perfect. The way the story is told is my favorite. It's one of the most brilliant, unique ways to tell this story of growth while time jumping for the
Yeah.
entirety of the film. But it's got such sweet moments, and then it's got such ridiculous, hilarious moments where you feel, or I feel like, oh, I've been exactly where Tom's at. Like right
Mhm.
now, I've been there.
Right.
Like, it's just for a movie that is about heartbreak for the majority of the film.
Yeah.
It's one of the most feel good films that kind of help push you and remind you, like, all right, it's time to get going. You and I talked about it earlier in this list of like movies that kind of remind you. You brought it up with Forgetting Sarah Marshall of like, you've gone through this.
Mhm.
When you look back on it with a different perspective, maybe you're going to start noticing things that you thought were great were not exactly what they were. And now you
Right.
can start moving on from that, and you can start like getting your shit together. Go after something that you actually wanted.
Yeah.
I think 500 Days of Summer pretty much perfectly does this.
Mhm.
And Joseph Gordon-Levitt is perfect. He's
Yeah.
perfect. But I just feel light, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Every time I
Does.
watch it, when it ends, I just feel lighter, I feel happier, and I feel like, okay, I need to throw on some Wolf Mother and start like, I need a big chalkboard as a wall so I can start just jotting stuff down. That's what I
Mhm.
need. That's what I need right now, folks. Yeah, I love 500 Days of Summer.
Yeah, I think it's very encouraging and kind of helps you get your shit together in that way. So my number 5, I think is definitely on my top 10 sci-fi. It may have been at the top if I'm recalling correctly,
Ooh.
and so maybe it is for me what you just described, where maybe bump that up to off of that list onto top 10 all time because it is that good. My number 5 is Children of Men from 2006. My favorite part of this movie is how it constantly absorbs you into the world. Like
Yeah.
I was thinking about this as I was rewatching it. Every scene is full of context, and you're noticing things in the background. There's things playing on the TV or the train screens, or different things happen kind of in the foreground, like on the windshield, or all there's just this context that's constantly floating around you or around the characters, and it just sucks you into the movie as they're not telling you the story, you're seeing the story and you're picking it all up all at once, all at the same time. And I love that. I think it's so weird that so many filmmakers like try to push for 3D films and they want the images to come off the screen when they're not even using the full space of the scene that they have right now. Like there's stuff you should be and could be doing with your backgrounds and blocking and all this stuff that you're not doing. And Children of Men is a great example because it does do all those things so perfectly. Like you see things and things happen in this movie that you just innately pick up where they're at, what's going on, how severe the situation is. It's a post-apocalyptic story about the fact that human beings, women specifically, have just stopped getting pregnant. And so for the past like 13 years, nobody has gotten pregnant. There have been no new babies. And so what does that look like? What happens when there is no next generation and no future of humanity? How hopeless do people feel, feeling like it's just us and then it's over? Like there's no real next thing to happen. And so I think those ideas are very, very interesting. And then following Clive Owen, who is, I mean, that's a thing that you kind of take for granted, is that, oh, the miracle of life and childbirth and what women and mothers are able to do is just incredible. And we kind of take that miracle for granted, that if it just went away, what would that be like? And so that's kind of what the movie's about. But then you take Clive Owen as kind of the main character that you see the story through, who is a father who has, before all of this happened, he lost their kid, like their kid died. And that put a strain on his marriage with his wife, Julianne Moore, played by Julianne Moore. And so she kind of takes it and becomes like this militant underground revolutionary kind of person. And then she convinces him to help get this refugee out of the country, which on the surface just seems like a reason to move the story forward. And then you realize that this girl is actually pregnant. And so now suddenly in this very hopeless world, you have the smallest, most vulnerable, fragile glimmer of hope. And their journey to like get her to safety. And it's kind of you don't even know if there's actually going to be an oasis when you get there kind of thing. It's just the most perfect sci-fi movie. It's the most perfect story of humanity, I think, is why I mostly love it. And the different levels and layers and the art pieces that appear in the film and kind of what they mean in the context of the story. It's so deep and so beautiful. And I love this movie.
It is one of the most intense movies to this day for me. Like, I won't give really anything away, but Jake, knowing how much you love this movie, the car chase, is one of the most insane sequences I think I've ever watched. Just the way the camera is, the way that whole scene is shot and paced, and just, I won't say too much because it's
very long with no cuts.
And it's kind of a vital scene. That movie is incredible. I think he hit the nail on the head with, I think what is so awesome about that movie and makes it so intense is the fact that they do utilize everything in every scene to make you feel like you're a part of this setting. You're in this world with everyone else. You feel bleak. Like from the get-go in that movie, you feel gray, you feel sickly, like you don't feel good about a whole lot. I think it's an interesting concept to where they are trying to protect and keep the first pregnancy kind of secret. Because on the surface, you would imagine this would be the hope, like the restoration of hope and color. And
everybody
life.
Should love this and support this.
Right. But they see it, and it might be a pessimistic point of view. I don't know. I think it's more realistic where people wouldn't quite know how to process that. And would approach it kind of in an unhealthy manner
Mhm.
where they would want to exploit it
Mhm.
or kill it
Yeah.
or see it. People would find some way to corrupt this
Mhm.
glimmer of hope. And I think it's an interesting thing where they're trying to protect the hope
Mhm.
so that it doesn't get corrupted. I think
Yeah.
it's just an interesting way of showing that. It's an intense movie.
Yeah,
Folks,
and
if you haven't
there's
watched
there's an extra level of context where then you pick it up throughout the course of the movie, which leads you to kind of understanding why this is such a big deal and why
yeah.
people wouldn't get it or wouldn't support it. In that all of the different countries are kind of failing around the world. It's not just something that's happening in Great Britain; it's happening everywhere, and all these other countries are failing, but Britain's kind of trying to maintain somewhat of a status quo, and they're doing that by keeping out refugees and immigrants and things like that. And this girl who's pregnant is an immigrant girl,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of an allegory a little bit as well, like a Christ allegory, where she's a miracle pregnancy and all this stuff,
Right.
in a different land and all that stuff. But it's that whole process of, well, these people have been told that this is bad and she's bad and and so they would not accept her pregnancy as much as they might like an actual British citizen's
Yeah.
pregnancy. And so it has a lot of layers, and I love it.
It's such a good movie. I always feel fortunate. I went and saw the theater.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hadn't seen really any promotion for it. I went with a buddy who kind of paid more attention to like the more indie style releases coming out. And so he would tell me about them, and I'd be like, all right, we'll go and watch it. And this was probably my favorite one that him and I ended up going and seeing. Children of Men. Guys, if you haven't seen it, you should. You really should.
Yeah. Written and directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who did Gravity. If you really liked Gravity or Roma or any of those movies, this is amazing.
Well, my number 5 is one that we really focused on, and it's one that you and I both kind of laughed and were like, oddly enough, we haven't had this movie on any list before.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I had talked to some people who thought that was kind of weird because they knew that I love this film. They're like, how did you not have this? Like, I specifically kept this one away from a top 10 list because I knew eventually we would do an all-time, and this was going to be an all-time because this movie is so much more than just a weird fucking movie. We did a deep dive on it this year, so if you're paying attention, you should start being able to narrow this down. It's a movie that has stuck with me. I have I don't know where he is. He's somewhere behind me. My number 5 is Fight Club.
Yeah.
If you listen to our deep dive, folks, I'll make this brief. For those that didn't listen to the deep dive, what the fuck? Go watch that. Fight Club is on every level that constantly grows, changes, evolves. Fight Club is such an important movie.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to stress this enough. It's cool. I know I watched it in high school because it was just part of that like niche of films where if you were high school, especially a high school boy, like you were kind of expected to watch certain films.
Yeah.
Especially if you were being kind of angsty or whatever. And watching Fight Club in high school is cool, but you're not gonna get it.
No.
Watching Fight Club as an adult, it kind of comes across way differently than it used to.
Yeah. You on the surface, you're attracted to like the Tyler Durden speech of like rebelling against the system and all that stuff. That's totally cool to high school and college age kids. But once you get into it, you realize, oh, none of that is real, and all the rules of Fight Club are actually intentionally broken, and you're supposed to break them and all this stuff. and the whole movie is about the complete opposite of all of this. It kind of blows your mind. You're like,
it really blows you away.
I didn't expect this.
I know you and I went into great lengths of our love for Fight Club, and I know it's one that's just it means more to me than just a cool movie or just a movie in general.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I'm gonna say it forever, folks. Tyler Durden might be one of the most important characters of like our time.
Mm-hmm.
You need to watch it. You need to pay attention to what he says throughout the film, because as an adult, especially an adult male, the shit he says hits heavy.
Yeah.
And it puts you in check every time. It's the kind of movie where I'm like, oh, I'm going to watch Fight Club. And my brain will be like, he's going to call you out on your shit. And I'm like, I'm not watching Fight Club right now.
Yeah.
This movie is like, I remember when I did see it way back in the day, it was one of those movies I was obsessed with and was like, I need as many people I know to watch this movie. I need to get this movie to the masses, as if I'm going to have that pull.
Right.
I got a lot of people to watch it. My dad still says like, that's a freaky movie. I'm pretty sure he says that because he's probably thinking like, oh, I'm getting a different message than my son used to. But
yeah,
I think it's such a powerful film in such a unique way. And I think it's one of the most, I could be even misinterpreting it, but the messages I take from it are very relevant, and they're very, no matter, the movie came out in 99, and I think its messages, what it's trying to tell you to rebel against, what it's actually trying to tell you to rebel against, is more important these days than it was back then, or just as I think the movie just keeps getting more relevant as time goes by. I think it's a timeless film. It's perfect. I love everything about it. It's oh my God.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think it is one of the more misunderstood movies, and so it would benefit people to spend a little more time with it and pick it apart, or listen to our episode about dissecting it. We could certainly be wrong, but I think that we're pretty spot on.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of our episode too. I think we had a really fun conversation about it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, there he is. There he is, folks.
Yeah. That's my favorite one, like, because of the way you described it, which is, this is completely against his whole reason for existing.
Right.
And I love the irony, is what I think what you said. The irony of owning.
It's my favorite ironic piece of merchandise or piece of memorabilia ever.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that they would make merchandise of Tyler Durden is kind of wild.
Someone missed the point. You could argue I missed the point because I bought the shit, but
you expressly said it was ironic, and I think that that's perfect.
Yep.
All right, my number 4 is the only sequel on my list, which is I think some people might be expecting a different one. You might even be expecting a different one. I don't know. I think that this one may get me some guff from the audience or from the world in general. A few of mine might, but this one probably more so because it was not well received. I think it still may not be well received, but the following it has, the cult kind of following it has, I'm firmly in that camp. I'm very much a cult follower of this movie because I fucking love it. So my number 4 is Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Oh, yeah. I knew. I am not surprised at all, Jake. No.
Yeah.
That is.
Every time I put this movie on. What? I want to hear what you're going to say.
I was going to say, I know I get excited about talking about movies I love.
Yeah.
Batman v Superman is probably one of my favorite things to hear you talk about movie-wise, because of how deep into it you go and how much it just resonates with you. Yes.
And I feel like I have to defend it so much because It got shamed by Rotten Tomatoes, and so many people are like, "Oh, it's dumb," or Zack Snyder is dumb, or the Martha like twist or revelation is dumb. It's not. It's brilliant writing. It's brilliantly executed. It is the most beautiful movie I've ever seen, which is silly to say about a comic book movie, but it's true. The opening, especially the way that you get Bruce Wayne's backstory through this slow motion, and it's extremely stylized. It's Zack Snyder. It's slow motion. It's hyper saturated. It's beautiful, and I love it. And Ben Affleck's voiceover of the words that he uses, which are that's just arranged in such a weird way that you wouldn't expect. He chooses weird words, but it's beautiful, and I love it. And it perfectly sets up the whole story of his parents being killed, which everybody knows, but is shown in such a beautiful and grounding way. And you hear Thomas's father say Martha as his last word as they're dying. And so that sets up the whole story of Bruce. If this movie was on its own, I would love it. But the fact that it follows Man of Steel, and especially a controversial Man of Steel where he kills somebody and then has that whole scream of anguish that he A, killed the last of his own race, and B, killed somebody when he's trying to be a hero and all that stuff, and he grows from that. You are then on a high of like, oh, this Superman is exciting. And then you go into this movie right after, literally like they overlap each other.
Yeah.
But it's from Batman's perspective, seeing this alien monster from space destroying his city, killing his like friends and coworkers and employees and children and all of this stuff. So that immediately you understand how he is afraid of that guy, that he needs to stop that guy at any cost. And I don't know, it just sets up the whole conflict and the versus part perfectly. It's the most perfect version of Batman. I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I love everything about him in this movie. If it was just the most perfect Batman and the most perfect Superman, that would be enough. But the cherry on top is you get the most perfect Wonder Woman. You get the tease of Justice League. You get all of this stuff. It's where DC had a direction, and then everything kind of fell off the rails. So I choose to ignore all of that stuff that happened and just live in this time capsule because I'm glad it exists. I'm glad it came out. I'm glad I get to enjoy it forever. It's everything I would ever want as a child and as a man child, and it's incredible. The critics are all wrong. Anybody saying that it's dumb that Batman suddenly saw his Superman's humanity in talking about his own mother and trying to save her, you're dumb. You don't understand movies. You don't understand story writing. This is beautiful and impactful, and I love everything about it. It's everything comic book movies should be.
Yeah, you and I, when we did our giant DC episode, I know we spent a lot of time on Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I came very close to putting Man of Steel on my all-time top 10.
Yeah.
This was one that I told you about where I was questioning, like, am I just writing the hype? And I'm not. Man of Steel, and this is coming from someone who's not like, I've never been the biggest Superman fan.
Yeah.
But when I tell people my fandom of Henry Cavill as Superman and Man of Steel, that movie is one of the most powerful superhero comic book films ever. But on top of that, it's just a powerful film.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful film about kind of trying to figure out who you are and what your place in this world could be. And the mistakes you're going to make trying to figure that out. Batman v Superman, I love because it's all about the consequences of every action you've taken. And it's not just Superman's consequences, it's all Batman's consequences as well. Right. And there's always going to be fallout. There's always going to be something so bad. I'm with you. Like, Christian Bale is my personal well, we've talked about this actually. I can't really pick like my number one.
Yeah.
Because they all give me exactly what I want.
Right.
I think the top three who would all be equal number one that just get this character and they deliver every perfect version of him would be Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson. Folks, Pattinson's Batman is damn near perfect. He is arguably the most heroic one, but we can talk about that later. But Batman v Superman, I know you and I have been on the defensive for this film since it came out, because you and I think we approached to it not just being comic book fans, not just being Batman and Superman fans, but the story was so different.
Yeah.
Because it's all, when you find out how it's all just been set up by Lex, how the villain has essentially pulled the greatest puppet master act ever put on film.
Yeah.
Like, it's better than Ozymandias in Watchmen. So, spoiler. Sorry, folks. To me, it's one of the most brilliant, just holy shit. Everybody has been duped.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
By this conniving piece of shit, eccentric, oh, woe is me guy who's only going to get more evil. But sadly, DC and Warner Brothers dropped the ball there, and we never got to see that flourish. But
and I think it's really interesting to see, as much as I don't like having to see it, I really think it's interesting to see that it's not just the actors that make Batman v Superman and Man of Steel so good. Henry Cavill's an incredible Superman, but you put him in the Joss Whedon Justice League, him as Superman is not enough. You need the writing, you need the intention, you need the editing, you need all that stuff. You can ruin it just as easily as make something good, probably easier than making something this good. And so that makes me love it even more, that it's not just an automatic, oh, they got the right people in the right place. It's that they actually put the love and care into it to make it as great as it is.
Yeah. And it gave me moments on a strict comic book side. It gave me moments I never thought I would ever see. Not only, obviously, Batman fighting Superman, which is one of my favorite fights. That's such a badass fight. But it gave me the warehouse scene, which is so fucking good.
Yeah, one of the best Batman scenes of all time.
It gave us Superman having to rejuvenate using the sun and being completely depleted of everything. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It gave us that. It gave us Doomsday. It gave us Superman's fate with Doomsday.
It gave us the Trinity, Justice League
Trinity. Like,
it gave us the death of Superman, spoiler.
Which, the death of Superman was the very first comic book I ever owned and read.
Yeah.
Like, so seeing what I read, kind of, I mean, obviously he changes it. Doomsday doesn't talk in Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
He talks in the death, but I got to see that fight. And it was crazy because, like, nerds like us going into that movie, knowing Doomsday was in it, all of us were like, we kind of know where this is going to go. Like, and to see it actually happen is so, to me, powerful that Snyder had the balls to be like, oh, you see the strongest, the greatest, like, the dude. Yeah, we're going to kill him. Yeah. He's going to take a stake straight through the heart, guys. Like, I thought that was awesome. I am all with you, dude. Batman v Superman is so fucking good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. And Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL's soundtrack is unbelievably solid.
Unreal. It's unreal. Yeah, I really wanted to put Man of Steel on this list, and I was like, it got edged out. But to me, that doesn't take anything away from it. It's just, it's such a, I think Man of Steel might be one of the greatest comic book movies ever. And I just feel like I keep gravitating towards it, which is funny because Superman was never my guy. And now it's like, no, I really am like, I need Batman, I need Superman. I have to have both. I just do.
I completely agree with you. I think that Batman Dawn of Justice is like Terminator 2 Judgment Day. It wouldn't be as good without the original. And so the original is incredible.
Yeah. That's a great pick, Jake.
Thank you.
Great pick. We're number 4, right?
Yes. Sorry, we
Yes.
talked about that one for a while.
No, that's good. All right. Well, my number 4 was shockingly not on our very first episode of all time of Action.
Action
And
adventure.
it was not on our Christmas episode either, which was also shocking.
Okay.
And some people might think, no, wait a minute. You just did 2 completely different genres. Did I?
I think that you didn't. I just am trying to think of an action Christmas movie that would fall into that category.
This
Besides
movie might
Jingle
be
All the
one
Way.
of the greatest all-time Christmas films ever made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, Jake. You know.
Duh.
If anyone has been paying attention, you know that Die Hard was going to get reserved for an upper level in my love of film.
Yeah.
I am obsessed with Die Hard. It is so awesome.
Yeah.
Like, to the point when I was younger and in acting classes and doing drama stuff, I used Hans Gruber's fucking monologue, his introduction monologue from the moment of greeting everyone at Nakatomi,
Ladies and gentlemen,
to executing Takagi. Like, I did that monologue. I did that performance. It was the only performance I was like, well, I have to, if we're doing monologues, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, Die Hard is just, this was one that I remember watching that first time and just having no clue what I was watching, but knowing that it was significant. Like, this is cool. And just being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
More and more. Every time it'd show up on TNT or USA or TBS, whatever, it was like, I don't give a shit what else is playing. We're watching Die Hard. I felt like Joey from Friends, right?
Yeah.
Like, I rented Die Hard and Die Hard 2. No, you rented Die Hard twice. Well, we get to watch it a second time.
Yeah.
Like, I am that guy.
Yeah.
I love the way the story progresses. I love how it starts off with just this feuding couple who obviously are going through a lot of shit. I love how it's terrorism, but is it? It turns out. Like, I love all the little points, and I still think Hans Gruber is one of the most effective movie villains.
Absolutely.
Because he doesn't hesitate. He is one that's like, I'm just going to pull the trigger. I don't need to carry this out any longer than I actually have to.
Right. Like, and it's because he's in complete control. He knows if he doesn't get this guy to give out this information, he doesn't actually need it. I have a backup plan and a backup plan to the backup plan.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
He doesn't rely on just one scenario or one outcome. He's able to adapt. I think he's just incredible. My Die Hard took an extra step into my love this year. Introduced my daughter to Die Hard.
Nice.
She I was talking about it and she was like, it's an action movie? Yes, it's an action movie. She goes, okay. Are there needles? Because she has a fear of needles.
Okay.
There needles, Dad?
There's glass.
There's no needles. I was like, there's glass, but like, you can cover your eyes on the glass. I'll tell you when.
Yeah.
Okay. She goes, well, I think I want to watch Die Hard, Dad. I was like, are you serious? You want to watch Die Hard? She goes, yeah.
The happiest words that you can ever be told
by
your child.
We came home. I popped that sucker in. And like, sometimes she'll do this thing where she'll tell me she wants to watch a movie. We'll sit down to watch. And she's like, no, I don't want to watch this. So I was expecting that. Nope. She was like, what are we watching? It's like, you said you wanted to watch Die Hard. So I put in Die Hard. Okay. That movie, when it ended, my daughter is looking at me and she's like, my heart is racing. That was so exciting. It was like, it was awesome, wasn't it? She goes, I feel mixed about it because it was cool. But that is violent. I was like, I know. I was like, they made a whole series, but you only really need to worry about the first 3. Like,
Yeah.
the rest you can skip. She was like, I'm good right now, Dad. I'm good. Did you like it? Yeah, I liked it. Okay. Now, you're not allowed to say yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Like,
yeah.
We got to put a, like,
put the kibosh on that.
Yeah. But Die Hard is just, this movie has stuck with me. I don't even know how old I was when I watched it. I think I was like 7 or 8. Like I said, I watched it on TV, and I know I was obsessed with it through my childhood, but the moment I think I was like, yep, this movie is going to be mine. It's a trivial, silly moment. But I remember my grandma took us grandkids out. She was going to buy everyone like a gift, right? My cousins, everyone's picking out like clothes. They're picking out shoes. They're picking out like important necessities, right?
Yeah.
I walked up with a copy of Die Hard on DVD. And she was like,
I would like this R-rated movie, please.
Yes. And I was with my mom, because my mom, you know, we all went, and my mom looked at my grandma and was like, he loves this movie.
We're kind of concerned about it, actually.
Yeah, like, we had just bought a DVD player when they first came out. So it was like 98, 99.
Yeah.
And I just remember my mom telling my grandma, like, this is his thing. Like, and dude, I coveted that copy. I had it up until a year or so ago.
Okay.
When I finally upgraded to the full Blu-ray like box set of all the films, but
sure,
it's still like, it's packed away in a box. I still have that copy. I'm obsessed with Die Hard. It's so good. Everything about it is so perfect.
It is the best. I feel like it's on the level with Dumb and Dumber, where it's just like a part of you.
Yeah.
And you know all of it. You know all the words. You know all the scenes. You love every moment of it. And it always feels just as good every time you watch it.
It's so good. And dude, I'm not kidding. Watching it with my daughter and seeing just her, like, that young first introduction to this whole scenario, the story, where she's like, is this happening? You know, when he drops the bomb down the elevator shaft to like blow the glass out to protect the cop, she's like, holy crap. I'm like, I know. It's so good.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot lately of like introducing our kid to movies and what will be his first R-rated movie and all this stuff. There's so many options, and I hope I don't screw it up. You can't go wrong with Die Hard, though. I do know that.
Yeah, you can't. And it's perfect. It's the perfect action movie.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We're in our top 3. Things are getting dicey. I will say we're going to be switching gears a little bit. Mine is not as feel good as what you just went through and described there. It is extremely unnatural how much I love this next movie. Everybody's going to say, what the fuck? Why would you have this in the top 3 all time? I love this movie in ways I can't even begin to describe yet. I am still trying to wrap my mind around all of the ways that this movie connects with me, but I know it's up at this level.
Okay.
So my number 3 is Hereditary from 2018.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
I don't know what it is about this movie.
Hell yes.
It's I think initially, first of all, it was a long time since a movie actually made me feel like not like afraid, but like nervous, or like that scared energy that I remember feeling as like a kid. But I feel it for like adult things, not like the scary grandma in the shadow, although I love the editing in this movie.
The scary grandma in the shadow is still one of the most like moments ever.
There's such perfect cuts and editing in this movie, from the initial sweep into like the model and how it just transitions immediately perfectly. Yeah, when the grandma's in the shadow and she turns on the light and she's not there, so effective, so perfect. But the thing that like cemented it for me was like when the main event happens in this movie, when they're in the car and that thing happens. The gravity of that situation and how he had to go home, and I wouldn't even know, like he doesn't know, I wouldn't know what to do. I don't know how to tell my mom that happened. I don't. And so yeah, I probably would just lay in bed until your mom wakes up and discovers for herself. How do you bring that up? Like just that moment, and I don't know, it's just dread and awfulness, and I loved it. I loved that. I don't know why it's so perfect.
Yeah, it is one of the most effective films I think ever. You know me, Jake. I think I've told you this. Like being the kind of personality where, especially when it's horror,
yeah,
whenever something is listed as like, this movie is making people pass out, it's the scariest thing ever. Like people can't make it to the end. I'm like, challenge accepted. What got me with this one was doctors were coming out and being like, this movie is actually like realist, like this is real, making people's hearts like freak out. We're getting heart palpitations, we're getting like irregular beating during this movie. It's bad. People are
if you have a condition, don't see this
right
movie.
Like there were medical doctors saying like, maybe don't watch this if you're prone to certain things. And I was like, oh shit, well now I really gotta watch it.
Yeah.
And I was cocky as hell, folks, eating my popcorn, being like, this movie ain't nothing. Yeah, the grandma was freaky, but this movie ain't nothing. Then that car ride. And I'll never forget this.
Done with the popcorn.
Like, it took me so off guard, and I just sat there the rest of the movie. Like I didn't finish my popcorn because that moment happened. And I think you're on the same page. I know your wife was on the same page. Like for those of us that love that movie, that moment was like, oh God.
Yeah.
All bets are off. Like I officially have no prediction for where this is gonna go, what I'm about to witness.
Yeah.
Everything before this is child's play. Everything after this is like you're trying to replicate. And I actually feel that.
Yeah.
Like
oh, I think so too. I think it changed the face of cinema because of how incredible it is.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a badass pick, Jake.
I love when movies do this, where they from the very first scene, very first shot, they kind of tease where it's going. They drop hints like the symbols and the flies and the models and all this stuff. And I also love when movies have another level. Like it's not just the story, but the story actually means something. And Hereditary is all of that. It's a very scary horror movie, but it's also a movie entirely about relationships and the things you pass on to your children, and not just relationally, but mental illness wise and physical illness wise and things like that. It's so complicated and so incredible and so unnerving that I love it so much.
Grief. One of my favorite things about Hereditary is its focal, like the focus it puts on grief.
Yeah.
And that grief from unresolved trauma.
Right.
From like your childhood or whatever with a parent. If you have that kind of stuff, and how do you deal with that if you choose to deal with it at all?
Yeah.
I think what Hereditary does the best is it is unnerving. It is just so queasy. But it doesn't rely on a jump scare. It doesn't rely on all this extra spectacle. They do a little bit, but it's not relied on. They show us some, but but what it relies on is just the human drama, where you're like, everyone is so beyond their edge. They've been pushed so far past what they can actually tolerate.
Yeah.
That when all this weird shit happens to them, it's escalated and it's made
Right.
so much worse than it probably should have
Right.
originally been. Of course, that ending comes up and you're like, what the fuck is happening? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You feel like for most of the movie, it could have certainly been avoided if the family had been more healed or a cohesive unit or whatever. But then, yeah, you get to the end and you're like, well, maybe it was out of control. I don't know.
Either way, yuck.
Yeah.
But it's such a good movie. I love that pick, Jake. Oh
Thank
my
you.
God. Well, we're switching gears again.
Good.
My number 3 is not frightening in any sense, unless you're part of woke culture, and then it might scare you to see that real people are certain ways, but it's okay because people can grow. People can make better decisions. They can learn from mistakes.
We all do that or should do
that. This was another one not on any previous list, but we did do a kind of a focused episode on it at some early, like pretty earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is just, it's another one where the older I get, the more I hold this one close, the more I cherish this movie. I take so much from it. I truly do believe it's an important film for a lot of our current generation these days. I think people need to watch it and need to kind of ground themselves and get away from the cancel culture, the woke culture, and kind of like realize reality is happening. And I think this movie is a perfect example of the importance of not shutting people out and the importance of, yes, even the worst of us, the most crass, can grow and have the most profound change for the better. They can, surprise you. So my number 3 is As Good as It Gets.
Yeah.
I know we did a deep dive on this one. I think Melvin Udall, who is a character played by Jack Nicholson, who is actually offensive. He is actually small-minded. He's mean.
Yeah.
He's a horrible human being. But the more you learn about him behind his closed door, all the problems that he's actually facing, well, not even facing, he's just dwelling in and trying to ignore, and just life forcing him to change.
Right.
Especially when he doesn't want it, but he's kind of yearning for something more than what he's got. I think As Good as It Gets is just such an important story. And it's another one. I saw it when it came out. I was too young to understand it. I thought it was funny because it is a funny movie. But it is one where when I watch it now, and I just watched it a couple days ago again, it was like, I didn't even rewatch it for confirmation. I literally was just like, no, I just want to watch this movie again. Like, I'm just going to watch it again.
It's time.
It's just, I love how, and it's, you see growth, not just in the worst of people, but in people who are a victim, but you learn more about them. You see actual personal growth in them. You see growth from someone who's so overwhelmed and they start letting themselves learn how to just kind of roll with the punches. Like, oh, things are getting better. That means you don't have to be just as stressed. Like, you can let yourself live a little bit. And I love how the 3 main characters are together, how they're kind of forced together. This movie is beautiful. It's hilarious. It's crass as it needs to be. You know, we did our offensive episode with legitimately gross films. This movie, I think, will offend a lot of people these days, but I think it would do it for the important reasons. It doesn't focus on being controversial or offensive for the sake of it. It has a point to it, and it's trying to teach us and show us, like, people can move forward. You have to help them sometimes. You kind of have to get them out of their ways. Yeah. But you can go about it in a positive way or in a healthy way. And I love this movie so much. I I really cherish this film. I think it's important. It's one that like it's a very grounding and humbling movie to me. Where if I'm having a bad day or people outside have pissed me off, I can watch it and just kind of have those moments of like, okay, it's helping me breathe. It's helping me breathe.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
Yeah. Oh, for
it's
sure.
Just, and I know you watched it for the first time when we did our
Yeah.
deep dive on it.
Yeah, and I really like that you suggested it. I was a little unsure when you suggested that we do a deep dive on it and just a full dissection of the movie, because A, I had never seen it, and B, what I knew about it is I was like, oh, it's a pretty funny comedy that is probably nice and endearing and good characters. But I didn't think we would get as deep as we went. And so I really, really enjoyed that episode. And I'm really glad that you suggested it. The ones that I suggest tend to be really complicated and weird movies. And so this was much more simple and nice but very, very deep as far as actual meaning and relations. And that growth, that personal growth that characters can develop in a story and in real life. I love that episode.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a great movie. I agree.
It's a movie I think will always be with me. It's one that I feel like I have to hold on to because there's so much for me personally to take from it. And it's just, I think more people need to watch it. People go watch it. As good as it gets. It's Jack Nicholson. It's Helen Hunt. It's Greg Kinnear. It's Cuba Gooding Jr. before he did Boat Trip. So it's
still good. Still on an upward trajectory.
Still awesome, Cuba. I just think it's to me, it's one of the most inspiring films.
Yeah.
And I can see why maybe some people would be like, how is this movie actually inspiring? The last shot, I won't tell you what the last shot is, folks, don't worry. But the final shot of that movie to me is the absolute perfect way to show that things can be better.
Yeah.
And it's the most quick, subtle, just quiet moment.
Yeah.
There's no close up. It's all shot from a distance, but it's perfect. Oh, I love that movie. Oh, it's so good. I might watch it again tomorrow morning. But
and I enjoy that his character gets there by being forced out of his comfort zone. He wouldn't have gotten there on his own.
No.
He had to.
He kind of needed
when he got there.
An equally crass support system, but in a different way.
Yeah.
But I do have moments where I'm like, I feel like I have to steal some of Nicholson's lines in that movie just to use at the movie. You know, his famous line to Helen Hunt of you make me want to be a better man. I kind of want to steal that, but change it to you just make me want to be a better person and just constantly say that to the film. You make me want to be better. Please make me better.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so important. Oh, go watch it, folks.
That's a great one. All right, my number two. Remember that, old timers?
Damn it, I missed it.
Two. My number two is probably going to be a shock that it's not my number one, because my number one has changed.
Oh, snap.
So my number two, and anybody who's been listening or knows that I've said for a long time, Forrest Gump is my favorite movie of all time. I have moved Forrest Gump to number two.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
It's still up there, so it's
it is still up there. I love it beyond words. It is still absolutely one of my favorites. But I had to just realize, I think that it was ready to move on. There are things about this movie I appreciate even more now than I did before. So it's still got a lot of life left in it. I'm still learning lessons from this movie, kind of like you described with this. I love this movie and its journey that it takes you on. And every reason that I love it is still true. I love the character of Forrest Gump. And I was just a simple guy who's from Alabama, who is kind of just lives an extraordinary life and doesn't really try to, doesn't really aspire to. He's not disappointed in something that he doesn't get, or he just kind of lives moment to moment. And it takes him on this incredible journey into these into meeting several different presidents, a bunch of famous people. And you also get an impression of how tumultuous that time period is, 50s, 60s, 70s. A lot of people were getting assassinated. We had Vietnam, like all this stuff happened. So it's a very interesting time to set it in. But his, I guess, journey of a guy who's just wanting to live up to everybody's standards for him, and especially starts with his mom and then goes to his friends. He wants to start a business with his friend Bubba and isn't able to, but he follows through on his promise and it becomes successful. Ends up saving the life of his other friend, Lieutenant Dan, who probably wouldn't be around if he didn't join Forrest on that journey, and ultimately leads to what he always wanted, which was his unending like love for Jenny, who is of course a very damaged individual, damaged person, not capable of giving him the love he deserves back for a very, very long time. But his unconditional love for her, no matter what, is beautiful. And then when he realizes that he's a father, his immediate concern that his shortcomings as intellectually may have been passed down and affected this kid is just a powerful thing that I never really got until recently. Like I have those two. I'm like, oh my God, everything about me and everything I do every single day is affecting this person.
Yeah.
And not just like things I can control, but things I can't control, like my DNA also are affecting this person, and its shortcomings is kind of a crazy thought. And so just to want the best for them and do everything you can. And I think it's such an inspiring film. I always feel great after watching it. It's one of those movies from beginning to end, like when the credits start and the little feather starts falling and the music is playing, it's just so, it's like a warm blanket, and it's like a security blanket that just makes you feel better no matter what's going on.
As you wipe the tears from your face, because
no
eye stays dry at the last 10 minutes of Forrest Gump.
He's so smart, Jenny.
No one stays dry. Oh,
yeah, I love that movie so much.
I rewatched it because I was like, well, Forrest Gump's probably going to show up on my list. We did our whole deep dive episode, which I absolutely loved. I feel kind of bad sometimes where I'm like, man, we really kind of like came to the conclusion that Jenny is just a horrible human being. Like Jenny's the bad guy of the story. I have moments of feeling bad about that. And then I rewatch Forrest Gump and I'm like, no, you just I mean, I get you're a product of your environment, but you really make the decision to mistreat Forrest and kind of use Forrest to your advantage.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate that she isn't able to figure it out until much later in life. But that's the way it goes sometimes.
It really is just one of the most beautiful movies. Like the music, the way it's shot. I mean, it's funny. It has very endearing, very sweet moments in it. And it's got some of the like heaviest dramatic scenes ever. And his narration over it is incredible. And yeah, the last 10 minutes of that movie are just some of the most profound, like moving, just God damn it, Tom Hanks. And we have an episode coming up and a couple episodes down the road, folks, where I had to laugh because I started pulling stuff like to prep for it.
Yeah.
And I've got like 5 or 6 Tom Hanks movies on this one. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You'll find out what I'm talking about later, guys. Forrest Gump is just, it's so well done. You know, Robert Zemeckis, I think Back to the Future is like my all-time favorite that he's ever done. That movie just means the world to me. But Forrest Gump is also arguably like, they are neck and neck. They're perfect films. They really are. I see like random headlines of like Forrest Gump doesn't hold up these days. And I'm like,
bullshit.
Yeah, that's a lot of crap. Forrest Gump should probably be a movie more high schools are like, hey kids, you need to watch this.
Yeah. Even the special effects, I'm amazed, still hold up.
Oh yeah.
Everything is so good, from Lieutenant Dan not having legs to the superimposing him into all those video clips. It still looks great.
Superimposing Tom Hanks into those clips
Mhm.
is like better done in 1994
Yeah.
than all the like full CGI recently passed actors that they keep bringing back into films, and it's like
True.
But I've noticed this with movies.
Even living actors. I'm picturing Hulk in the Hulkbuster, or Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster in Endgame, just standing there. I'm like, that looks like dog shit compared to
it's so bad
from 1994.
It's so bad. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that special effects like Forrest Gump or in Jurassic Park are still regarded as higher quality than what we see now. It's just funny.
Yeah.
Things to think about, folks. I'm so curious to hear your number one now, because I feel like it's so up in the air.
It is.
Oh my God.
I surprised myself selecting this, but it's what it had to be.
Okay. Well, unlike you, my top two are of no surprise to anyone who has ever had just a quick conversation with me. You know, you know what they are. Actually, you know what one of them are. If you've been listening to our show, then you know what the number one is as well. I thought my number one was different until this year. But we'll get into that momentarily. My number two, it's The Dark Knight. Like Now, before everyone goes, oh, of course, Dustin went with Batman. I did go with Batman because Batman is like one of the most meaningful characters ever latched on to. Batman is my security blanket. Dark Knight is more than just a Batman film to me, and I know that's what Nolan had set out to do, was make a trilogy that wasn't just a Batman story. He wanted to make the story of Bruce Wayne. He wanted it grounded in reality. He wanted to show the effects of this, the choices we make, you know. The Dark Knight, to me, if it wasn't about Batman and it wasn't about Joker, if it was just about this man trying to make a difference in his city by utilizing like whatever means he's able to, I think if it still maintained this story, it would be just as powerful. The fact that it's Batman is just like, oh, that's just cool, because it is.
Right.
But this is it's my favorite version of Batman. You know, I said earlier when you brought up Batman v Superman, Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson have given me the most absolute perfect live action portrayals of the character.
Yeah.
They just have. I'm not taking anything away from Keaton. He's always going to be classic and like held with the highest of respect, but these three have just, they showed such a intense human side of this character.
Yeah.
And the decisions and his perspective on the world of, even when I'm so beat down and I've absolutely given up on what I was trying to do because it's just not working out. I'm being challenged too much. I love what makes The Dark Knight such an incredible film to me is it focuses on the whole principle of when you're that beat down, that's when it's the most important and most vital to continue what you're doing, to continue moving forward, to make that impact, to make that change in the world around you and in yourself, because you're going to be affected by that change. Dark Knight is just, it's intense. The story is incredible. Of the whole idea of like choosing to take a weight so that someone else might be able to like prosper. The whole idea of, you know, realizing, hey, that person might be able to have a better impact than what I'm doing right now. Maybe I should support them
Mhm.
instead of, question them or fight them. Maybe they
Yeah.
actually can do more good. I may have set the footwork, but they might be able to take it from there.
Yeah.
And then just having the balls to call out the corruption to be like, we trusted you, or I trusted
Yeah.
you, and this is what's happening. The Dark Knight has so many things to it. I think it's just one of the most profound stories. It's one of the greatest Batman iterations ever.
Mhm.
It's oh god, I could go on forever. Not you folks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all of that is true. And then you add on the most perfect Joker of all time.
You add on the most perfect Joker.
Yeah. And which is enough on its own. But then you also have an incredible Two-Face, which I've always loved Two-Face.
Yeah.
And to see that perfect rendition and not Tommy Lee Jones rendition is just unbelievably good.
I'm trying to quickly look at my notes because I write my notes, I say my bullet points, and then I'll forget a few. I'm sure
Yeah.
you do the same
Oh,
thing.
100%.
But I guess I already said that. I love how they show Batman when he's he's really building up that hierarchy of he's making that difference, he's making that impact of what he wanted, where it's not just going after the biggest guys, but he's
Yeah.
the movie starts off with the symbol being put in the sky, and you
Mhm.
see thieves or drug deals going on. They see it and they're immediately like, oh hell no.
Yeah,
The
not
dude's out tonight, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
They reiterate that in the Batman with Pattinson.
Yeah. Just his presence is cleaning up the city.
Yeah. I just think what I get from this movie is the belief and the importance of believing that we are meant for something greater than what we're
Mhm.
originally told, that we're meant to be far better than what we tell ourselves even.
Yeah.
We can make a change, we can make an actual difference.
Mhm.
We just have to keep pushing through it. And you have to do it in the correct way. And I think that's the importance of Batman himself. I mean, Batman is such a profound character. He's my first memory ever.
Mhm.
That's no joke. I've told you that.
Yeah.
My very first memory is always going to be just Batman. Whether that's, I know our memories when we're toddlers and
Mhm.
young children are usually skewed, but Batman has just always been at the forefront. And Bale's performance, his portrayal of Batman through Nolan's trilogy, but specifically in this one,
Mhm.
is just the most emotionally powerful one because of what he's put through and because of the decisions he's forced to make.
Yeah.
And still maintaining, even at the moment where it's it's time to let go of your morals, it's time to break your one rule, right?
Yeah.
And then just have the stones to hold your stance.
Right.
That's incredible to not give in.
Mhm.
And The Dark Knight, I think, is just the most perfect example of that importance, to not give in, don't give up. It's important what you're doing.
Mhm.
And it's just, it's so good.
Yeah. And it's important to have people in your corner to encourage you when you want to give up.
Yeah.
And that's partly why Michael Caine's
Oh,
Alfred is
his
so
Alfred
perfect.
is my favorite Alfred ever.
Agreed. 100%.
So but yeah.
All right.
Holy
Well,
shit, we're at number 1.
The time has come to actually announce our top 1 movie of all time for right now.
This is crazy.
And it's appropriate that you bring up The Dark Knight, because my number 1 movie of all time has a lot of the same people involved with it. I officially have made Christopher Nolan my favorite writer and director of all time, and so of course his movie is my number 1 favorite movie of all time. It also has Michael Caine and Michael Caine, and I'm completely blanking on Batman's name. Christian Bale. Christian Bale. And it, of course, has Michael Caine and Christian Bale in it as well. It is not Batman related. However, I've already had one of those movies. And so you will know, and anybody who's cool will know, that it is The Prestige.
Yep.
Which is just one of those movies that I've loved for a long time. Every time I watch it, I love it more. I've watched it enough that I've realized I love this movie more than anything. It's one of those movies that I'm a sucker for ideas. I love movies with great ideas, even if they're not done that well. When you get somebody like Christopher Nolan, he takes great ideas and does them perfectly. So that helps. But The Prestige is great because it's a movie on the surface about rival magicians. And the way that the rivalry is told, I love that they end up with each other's journals and they're kind of trying to learn about each other or learn each other's secrets. It's a cat and mouse game as they're kind of going back and forth with each other and taunting each other. And how they are like frustrated by each other and one-upping each other and all of that stuff. That part is great. That's just like the tip of the iceberg though for this movie, because there's so much more to it. The structure of the movie and how they describe at the very beginning, here is how a magic trick works. You start off with these 3 pieces, and the prestige is the reveal of the trick. And the way that the movie is formatted, the 3 acts of the film, is basically those 3 acts of the magic tricks. And so when you get to the last stage of the movie, the 3rd act or the final act and the climax, and the prestige of the movie, as they reveal all this different stuff to you, it's not just a twist. It's like all these different things happen. Some things seem like twists. Some things happen exactly how they were described as happening, but that is all of a sudden more horrifying than if it was actually a trick. There's sci-fi elements, which is weird for a turn of the century movie about magic.
Well, you got
guys.
David Bowie plays Tesla.
You have Nikola Tesla, and I do appreciate all of the jabs at how Thomas Edison is trying to shut down Tesla. That's very fun and accurate. But the way that the story follows the magic tricks and the way that the actual reveal happens is so satisfying, and you love having that exposed to you. You would think, or you would be worried that, once the reveal or the twist happens to you, then the movie is forever changed. And it is forever changed, but it's changed for the better, which is why I love it so much, in that once you actually know kind of the main story and how it happens, that just opens up so much more. All of the characters' relationships are much more complicated, more complex. The story and their actual progression and rivalry is even deeper. It's like a flower that blooms after you've already seen it, and then once you see it, you just need to keep watching it and keep absorbing it. I love the mystery of that first time, and I think that it still maintains that mystery even after you've seen it. It's not one that you see it and then you're like, oh yeah, I know what happens. It's just so expertly told, and I guess because it's more complicated, that it's easy to forget all of the little details and all of the little pieces. So every time something happens, you're like, oh yeah, like that's so interesting and exciting and fun to experience again and again. And those are the kinds of movies that I think you have to be on your top 10, ones that you want to watch again and again and again. And this is absolutely like that.
Obviously we're going to try not to say the 3rd act. I am complete agreement with you. I think it's such an incredible film. I like that we both have 2 of Nolan's, I guess I don't want to say overlooked. I think The Prestige is definitely overlooked a lot, which is shameful.
Yeah.
And then Inception is usually boiled down to like a quick joke or something. But I like that we both added like, oh no, there's a lot of meat to these stories. My favorite, every time I watch The Prestige, I know the movie.
Yeah.
I know everything that's going to happen in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But the final act is always so satisfying when it happens. When you see the one image that is like the final act, that one image, that one quick moment, every time I watch it, I spend most of the story like, oh my God, I know, like, when's the transition again? When are we doing this again? When are you showing me this again? And then it happens, and every time I'm like, oh shit. you feel so like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Prestige it's so well made, and it's intense, and you spend the whole movie in the same mentality as you would watching a long magic trick, you know?
Yeah.
It's so much fun. It's so intriguing and
and
mind-blowing.
it holds your attention. There's misdirection, which is probably my favorite part, where there are things that when you rewatch it and you know what's happening, you're like, oh, I didn't even notice this, because he puts your little misdirection over here, so the audience focuses on this little girl and not the guy behind her and all this stuff. It's expertly done. I agree with you. I think it is criminally underrated. It's a movie that we could absolutely do a deep dive on.
Oh yeah,
and get really deep into the weeds on. I think that would be fun. We haven't done any Christopher Nolan movies.
We have not, which I realized in prepping for this episode. I was like, we haven't done any Nolan movies.
Yeah.
And
we haven't done Nolan movies. We haven't done a Nolan episode. There's a lot we should probably do.
Yeah. Don't worry, folks. We've been pretty vocal about our like top 2 favorite filmmakers. Don't worry. I'm sure they're coming. You'll have to prep yourselves, because I'm pretty sure if we did a deep dive on any Nolan film, especially if we did a deep dive on like the Dark Knight trilogy, that could be a multi-episode thing.
Yeah.
If we did,
we couldn't fit them all into one
No.
episode. It'd have to be an episode per movie, basically.
If we did your boy, Denis Villeneuve, again, probably multi-episode, because you can dive so far into his stuff. I swear to God, if we ever did one on Arrival.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
That's such a great pick, Jake. I'm so proud of that. That's such a good one.
Yeah. And Hugh Jackman, his character and his arc, I guess. And he is, I think, the foundation of the rivalry with Christian Bale. Christian Bale is flawless and perfect, but I think Hugh Jackman is kind of the heart of the movie, where he's trying to chase this guy, not sure how he's doing this thing that's so good. It kind of does the Icarus thing and gets a little too close to the sun by trying to replicate what he's doing, and it raises really interesting questions about ethics and morality and all of that stuff. It's very interesting.
I think we need more Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale performances together.
Definitely.
We need more FaceTime between those two. That kind of intensity would just be off the charts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's such a good pick, Jake. Well, unlike yours, which no one saw coming, pretty sure everyone at this point knows my number one.
Yeah.
Now, like I said earlier, originally I had figured this was no longer my number one, because it was my number one for many years, and then it kind of it moved around, because this kind of list is always going to shuffle. It's always going to evolve and all that. And then we decided to do a dive on it. And I just watched it with my kid, and she hated it, not because it like bored her or anything.
Hurt her brain. I think
visuals were spectacular and the action was there, but she still resents this movie because it broke her brain her words verbatim. So my number one is The Matrix. And I had realized in prepping for our deep dive into the Matrix whole series, the franchise, even though we primarily focused on the first one, which I thought was healthiest and the best way to do it. It's the most meaningful movie out of all of them, but in prepping for that, I realized, like, one, the movie's hitting me differently now on a way deeper level. And two, it's just like, this movie really does hold up for me. It really is my ultimate, like, Forrest Gump is your warm blanket. The Matrix is mine. This movie is just the absolute, I think it needs to break your brain. I think it needs to be there in your face. I think more people need to watch it. I think more people need to dive into it like you and I did, where we start learning all these new layers. I remember our episode, we were both like, oh, wait a minute, I'm starting to realize this now. Like all the allegory to it and just all the parallels to our own selves compared to like, or alongside with like Neo and the Nebuchadnezzar and Morpheus and all that. You know, when it comes to the Matrix, I really always come back to the scene with the Oracle, his first meeting with the Oracle. And she, you know, points out the sign, it's know thyself. And just their whole conversation, the whole idea of he's telling her like, I'm not the one. And she tells him, well, sorry, kid, but it looks like you're waiting for something. I think that scene, for being just a quick 5-minute scene in a 2-hour film, 2.5-minute scene, is probably the most important scene in that whole movie. And it's the one scene, I know I talked about it in our deep dive, where it really feels like they're talking to us. Where it's like, you are meant for something, but you're waiting for that thing to show up. So it's not going to show up. You have to actively go for it. But more importantly, you actually have to believe in yourself. Not that you have superpowers, but like you have to have some kind of belief in your own self. You have to know yourself before you can make any progress in this life. And I think The Matrix is probably one of the most just incredible, visually incredible, but storytelling wise, it is the story that just hits me on a level that no other movie really does. It just like, I connect to it so deeply, and it's go listen to our deep dive and you'll hear me ramble on for 2 hours. But
I love that from a hero perspective. And I think that's the best kind of hero, is that he is not the one until he decides to be the one. And then after he decides to be the one, it doesn't matter if he was supposed to be the one or not. Like, that's what matters, is you deciding to achieve that thing or go for that thing. And then when you do, you can be unstoppable, that kind of thing. I completely agree with you. I was so close to having it on my list. I had a even more deep respect and love for that movie after doing that episode with you, and just getting into all the layers. It's so well thought out. The ideas are so great. It's unfortunate that it was just kind of unraveled in I think a popularity trilogy kind of thing, and they needed to force it too much. But that first one on its own will always live as a perfect story that, you know, it's perfect writing when people connect it to their own life immediately. Like, a lot of people connect it to their life and really start to like see it and feel it and everything, and wonder if they're in a simulation, and all of this. So it's too real and too great, and it's because it's based on everything that we know and see and feel every day.
It is a movie that I cannot really deny its impact on my life. You know, it was the first rated R movie I got to go to the theater to see with my brother and my dad. Thanks to my brother convincing my parents to let me go. And it was something I had never experienced before. And it's that one movie that it really set that stage for what experiencing film is. It wasn't just watching this cool ass film on the big screen. I mean, it's a cool ass movie.
Yeah.
On the big screen was awesome. But
Oh, yeah.
I actually I felt an experience during it. I felt just that deep kind of knowledge of, oh, things are changing for me. Oh, I just grew up. Because after The Matrix, I expected more out of certain kinds of movies that I was watching. I didn't want to just see the same explosion or the same car chase over and over again.
Right.
I expected a deep story. I expected character development and growth and turmoil. And
yeah, kind of put an end to the 90s and 80s action movies of just style over substance, and ushered in a new era of very complicated, very interesting action movies.
It's kind of crazy that as a little kid, I all of a sudden expected no, I want my brain to get challenged. I want a story where I have to focus on everything they're saying and everything they're doing.
Yeah.
Because there's something important happening that'll be revealed to me later on. That's just The Matrix, just always, whether it stays number one permanently or whatnot, I think it's always at least going to be in that top list, because it has the biggest impact on me as a film fan and as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there you go. Top 10.
So, as a joke that I was like, only Jake will get it. I came very close to putting Happy Gilmore on my top 10, just as a joke, because I had it on 2 or 3 lists.
Yeah.
2 or 3 episodes already.
We talked about it in several episodes. I know you love Happy Gilmore.
I fucking love Happy Gilmore. You guys can't see it, but I have Happy Gilmore right to the side of the screen.
Nice. What other honorable mentions do you have that almost made the list? I know you had a ton. I had a ton too, but just a couple that were so close.
I actually did narrow that down.
Okay.
For the longest time, I had Requiem for a Dream as one of my all-time favorites.
Really? Okay.
Really, really. I still believe it's one of the most important films, one of the most brutally honest portrayals of addiction and the dangers of drug abuse and what that can lead to.
Yeah.
I still love it, but I find myself these days in a place where I need movies that give me kind of a positive feeding.
Yeah.
And Requiem for a Dream, as much as I love that movie, it does not make you feel good.
Not right now.
But I think it's an incredibly important film. And I like how abrasive it is. I also had Multiplicity, was also one that I juggled, because that one is also a warm, fuzzy movie for me where I just feel good every time I watch it.
Yeah, it's really fun.
I had Gladiator, almost made it on, because that movie is just incredible. And the soundtrack is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely amazing. And then I almost had The Sixth Sense on my list. But did you notice, that being said, for my top 10 and for me being me, I did not have a single horror or thriller film on my list.
I actually did notice that. That was very interesting, I think. Anything intentional behind that, or just the way it fell out?
That was just how it came about.
Interesting.
I thought I was like, oh, I feel like there's something telling here, but I'm not sure if I want to see it.
Yeah.
I deal with it.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Mine, kind of like you with Requiem for a Dream, I had a movie, I was like, this is so close to being on there. I would love it to be on there, but it didn't quite make it. It was also very dark and not fun. Prisoners. You mentioned Denis Villeneuve. I love Prisoners, and I love how abrasive it is and unhappy it is. and the messages behind it. But yeah, it is a rough one.
That movie.
It's a rough one.
I haven't watched it since I saw it in the theater, and I still, every time you bring it up, every time I just feel the little hairs on my neck, just like, ew.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm gonna keep bringing it up because it's great.
I know.
Also, Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn,
The original
it's like better than it needs to be. Every time I watch it, I'm amazed at like how great it is, and I kind of just, I guess the stakes and what they mean and everything is really well done for what it is. And Wedding Crashers is just the funniest goddamn movie ever. It's so fucking funny. I that's all I can say about Wedding Crashers. It's the funniest movie I've ever seen. You were gonna do Sixth Sense. I was gonna do Signs. Actually, I love Signs, and I feel like it deserves to be up there. And then Saving Private Ryan also.
Yeah.
I'm amazed we didn't have any crossovers.
I know.
I thought that we would, being at like the tippity top of the
Right.
list, but that's very
Well, I
interesting
mean,
too.
But I think our lists make sense. I'm sure some people might be shocked that I don't have a single like feel bad or horror film movie on mine. It's just not where I'm at. Like I have nothing against those movies. I still love those movies.
Right.
I'm also kind of taking a break from those kinds of movies thanks to our last episode. I just palate cleansing is a good thing, folks.
Yeah. Edifying.
Yeah, I found that interesting for myself. I think our lists make sense for each other, and I think although we didn't have any specific crossovers, I think we still kind of like shared some pretty similar themes for a lot of our movies.
For sure.
I think it's funny that you've always been one to say, like, I don't really care about like the human side of like that's not what draws you in.
Yeah, touchy-feely.
Your top 10 definitely has a lot of like the human drama aspect that the stories rely on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use Batman v Superman against you in that regard because
it's true.
Movie literally it culminates with finding your own humanity.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the pivotal moment.
Yeah, it's exactly right. No, I completely agree. And I think that, like we said, this is our top 10 list for today, November 18th, 2022. And it's based on where we're at. You're not in a place where you're super into horror right now. I'm in a place where I'm becoming more touchy-feely with life
you are.
and all that stuff.
Those
so
damn
it works
children.
Out. Yeah. And that's why Hereditary is on my list.
No,
I'm just kidding.
That's still such a great pick, dude.
I know. I love it. So now that that's out of the way, we've got interesting stuff coming up.
Yep.
Next episode is a kind of a weird one. I think it's a fun one. I'm excited for it, partly because they're remaking it. So we're doing a deep dive into Roadhouse.
Yeah. Now this is funny, folks, because Jake and I both learned.
Yeah.
I guess we both assumed that the other had seen Roadhouse growing up, considering how many movies similar to it we grew up watching and loving.
Right.
And then we both kind of learned that neither of us have actually ever watched it.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen parts of it.
Right.
But I feel like I have thought for a long time that not that many people liked it, and that it was kind of like Bloodsport. Like people like Bloodsport, but they don't love
a good
Bloodsport.
Fucking movie, though. That's a great movie.
But I feel like I've talked to several people lately that love Roadhouse. And I'm like, really? Roadhouse? So we're gonna check it out and see if it's worth what it is.
Yeah, which will be interesting. I feel like it's been a minute since we've done a deep dive on a movie neither of us really have seen. I know I'm the same way. I'm pretty positive I've seen bits and pieces here and there, but I know I've never watched the whole thing. I feel like it's been a while since we've dove into a movie that neither of us really know a whole lot about.
Yeah.
And I think the last time we did that was
the Under the Silver Lake.
Was it Under the Silver Lake?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie.
I love that movie.
So maybe this will turn out like that. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, so that should be an interesting and fun one. And then we're getting real touchy-feely, folks.
Yeah, I've been partly preparing for that. You alluded to it earlier in the episode, but 2 episodes from now, we're doing our top 10 tearjerker films.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a sad fest. Get your tissues for that one.
or as I've deemed on my notes, the movies that throw dirt in our eyes because we don't admit when we're crying.
I have something in both of my eyes.
Man, the dust. Oh, I told my daughter that we were going to do an episode about our top 10 movies that make us cry.
Yeah.
You know what her response was?
What?
She just started laughing at me. She was like, why are you going to watch movies you know is going to make you cry? And I was like, because it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make you watch movies that make you cry. She goes, nope.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so that'll be a funny one. I've pulled a whole lot. Like I know what I'm rewatching so far.
Yeah.
And I was gonna start prepping it, and then I was like, it's hard to get yourself motivated to watch movies that you're like, there is a 100% guarantee.
Right.
I do not make it to the end of this movie with a dry eye.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, it's not the most fun. I mean, they're generally positive, like I guess kind of a good release of emotion as opposed to being forced to cry and not wanting to. But yeah, it's still something you gotta build up your excitement to do.
Like, do I need to buy like a pint of ice cream and just prep myself that way? I might do that actually.
That's a good idea. Getting some fuzzy pajamas and under a blanket, and
I don't have fuzzy pajamas.
Well, you should go buy some fuzzy pajamas.
I'm not gonna buy fuzzy pajamas.
And then post it on our Instagram. By the way, you can go to @movieboners on Facebook and Instagram.
Hey, we have some funny memes regarding our offensive episodes.
Yeah, it's so hard not to post things from the movies because people will unfollow immediately.
Yeah,
because they're disgusting. But we're trying to do some creative ways to reference them without actually talking about them. I think it's pretty funny so far.
I've enjoyed it. I had to laugh at the person. I think it was on like the second meme you posted of what's the most offensive movie you've ever watched. And the first response was Blazing Saddles. I was like, okay, folks.
I was like, oh, honey. Yeah.
Like, oh, go watch Birth of a Nation.
I mean, there's a reason there was a bunch of Blazing Saddles in the intro because there are like parts that are offensive, but that's the joke. Like it's supposed to be. It's a joke. These are legitimate. like
they're not joking. They're bad.
They're sincere.
Bad.
But you already know that because you listened to last episode. Yeah. I don't need to rehash that.
Yeah.
But yeah, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And buy merch if you want merch.
Yep, go buy stuff.
And call into the show and leave a voicemail if you have any opinions about our top 10 all time. Anything that you can't believe we like or don't like. We'd love to hear from you. And we appreciate you for listening for this long.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do it without you. We love you.
Yeah. Genuinely appreciate you guys. You guys rock. Yeah, thank you. 100 episodes. God damn, Jake.
I know. It's been a fun ride. Here's to 100 more.
Yay. That's cheesy as hell, but that's okay. And we have no beer to cheers.
I know.
We
I drank it all. Oh, well. Next time.
Yep. All right, everyone.
Yep.
See you next time.